Welcome, welcome everybody. Hope you can hear me well. Welcome, Patricia. Hope you're doing fine. Hope it's not too hot. It's so hot here. Let me set up everything without falling like in I don't know, heat stroke territory already. Hope the sound is good. Welcome, Sora. Welcome, welcome. How is the weather? Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I mean, the answer to that question. Let's go in. You know, you can look at me. I'm like already like really sweaty, and it will not get better over the course of the stream. So please excuse me if I like just, you know, sometimes might not answer your question correctly because it's like really hot here. Like the weather here where I live is like it's almost 40 degrees already, like outside, and my room with the PC and stuff. Streaming and being like locked in with my green screen and stuff. Oh my god, that will be probably the hottest stream of the year. And I will talk about balance later as well, and I think we have some hot stuff there, at least some hot opinions there from me as well. So it will be a fun stream for you to watch. So yeah, hopefully you enjoy it as well. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Exactly, 37 degrees. Yeah, that is like, I think almost all across Europe it's like really hot. Maybe not in Scandinavia, but in like the southern middle Europe part, it's really hot right now. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I mean, it's, yeah, what can you do? You know, it's what it is. But I will try to make a nice stream nonetheless. But please bear with me if my gameplay and my answers are not as, I don't know, good as they could be. Let's say it like that. Hope you all are doing fine though. That's important. And hope you all have a nice weekend. That's also very important. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I really hope like when it goes back down the temperatures here, like I will be like so happy because then I can finally like continue doing my stuff, you know, that like it's actually hindering me quite a bit. Like this heat, it makes me very, I don't know, like exhausted, and I really don't want to have my PC for editing and for streaming all the time on. I think that's really like, that's hurting my production level for sure. Yeah. Welcome everybody, welcome. Hope you're all doing fine. And as usual, if you have any questions, any comments, let me know. I will play a bit. We will talk about the patch notes later as well. I will go over all the big reworks because I have big thoughts. I made a YouTube video about it where I tried to be very concise, but I think here in stream we can actually talk about it a bit more in detail and discuss some stuff, because almost every class, I think, like with the exception maybe of Guardian, every class got some kind of rework, and we will talk about it and I will share my opinion there. But today is like just ask questions as usual, and especially new players, just let me know. I always try to help, and we just have a fun time here on stream. I play a bit, and of course, just a quick reminder in the beginning, if you want to buy any expansion right now, you can do so for 30% off with the exception of Chant der Wilds and Visions of Eternity. So if you are on the fence of purchasing any one of those, be sure to like use my referral link if you want to support me, because right now is a pretty good time to actually do so. Sadly, Visions of Eternity and Chant der Wilds not in there, but yeah, I guess at some point. Living in a furnace, exactly. Yeah, glad you like my uploading consistency. I try to be really like rigid and never change it, just so that we always get like nice daily videos about Guild Wars 2 and 3 in the future. Yeah, exactly. It's cold in Southern Australia. Nice, you have a heater on. I guess that makes sense, you know, it's like, for you it's winter, so I guess that makes sense. For us here it's summer, yeah, that's the difference, the big difference. I wish I was like in Australia now, I guess, at least in the southern parts, yeah. I mean, that's how it is, yeah, that's how it is. Yeah, welcome back. No, welcome to Australia as well. Greetings to you. Yeah, welcome. So for me, it's like in my room, it has 30 degrees right now. Outside, it has 36 right now, and it's in the morning. So over the course of the day, it will get to like 40. It will be very bad, like very, very bad for me. I'm not a hot guy in that regard. I don't like it that hot. Exactly. Yeah, the heat is for me too much. For me, it's too much. Some people like it. For me, it's too much. I got my first legendary today with the gloves from the incursion thing. Nice, congrats. That's very good. Very, very good. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the best legendaries to start out with because it's just like very easy to get and it's probably also the like cheapest and very fun. So perfect. Yeah, good job. And if you have any other questions, just let us know. We're always happy to help. Yeah, it's crazy, you know, even like in the northern parts of Europe, like if you go to Denmark and like even Germany is normally not that hot. So it's crazy that it's now like this really like crazy summer heat wave is like happening there. So what do we have here? Like, okay, systematic Benny. Okay, who do we fight against? Interesting. We will see. We will see. Classic ranked setup, just going far. You know, the enemies close is my home. That's my motto here. Let's see how it goes. Let's see how it goes. Stay safe. Yeah. But yeah, as usual, if you have any comments, I will try to read them and like get in there. But keep in mind, I also like in PvP. Oh my god! In PvP, I will be a bit more concentrated than usual. I just don't want to lose the match. Okay. I don't like the rampage here, but it's okay. Just want to maybe force the node. That would be awesome. Let's see. Okay, never mind. Okay, the Soul Beast. Almost got the Soul Beast here. Very good. I think our team is actually pretty good. Like, we are winning close and mid. I mean, what more do you want? I just stay on node, so they have to go on here and cannot kite that much. I think that's like looking like a pretty nasty stomp, to be honest. I mean, I'm sorry that not a crazy good match is like happening here for now. I had some really close matches in ranked recently, so sad that I cannot stream it, but I guess we will see. Maybe I have some other hot stuff streaming later, some 101s in World vs. World or something. I can imagine. Yeah. What light armor class benefits the most from Celestial stats? Actually, all of them do. All of them are pretty crazy good with Celestial. I think like Elementalist is in general probably the best across all game modes because you have always 4 elements, which is just in general like extremely good. Like you can like heal and have healing power with water, you have damage with fire and air, you have defense with earth. It like it doesn't matter which weapon you play, almost always Celestial is really good. I would say Necromancer is also very good, and even Mesmer is pretty good with Celestial. It's like there is always a build that you can play with Celestial for every class, but I think like Elementalist is for a light armor class is probably in general one of the best ones. But yeah, I would say like don't choose just because of what's the best. Choose what you enjoy the most, and I think all of them have really good Celestial builds. Core Necromancer. Okay. Just heads up, I sent a mail to a businessman, my Twitch name, it's not spam, I just wanted to say I would guess you get massive of that. No, I mean, it's fine. I mean, if you have any comments, you can always send me mails and like Discord messages. I cannot like promise you to answer and like take everything into like account all the time, but I will try, especially if it's good feedback or any like requests, I can try to always like incorporate it in my future content for sure. I started playing 2 months ago. I have a Power Warrior full Ascended gear and 150 AR. Can I continue play Power Warrior or did I get nerfed hurt? No, don't worry. We will talk about the changes, but to summarize with one sentence, we have a lot of reworks and almost no nerfs. So essentially, you can play everything that you played now. Nothing changes too much, especially if you're like somewhat more of a casual player. If you're like a tryhard player, yeah, maybe some changes will affect you and you will have some meta adjustments to make. But for like a somewhat newer player or casual player, no changes whatsoever affect you in a negative way, at least. When like if there is a change that is like affecting you, it will probably be a positive one at that. So yeah, don't worry. This balance patch is actually pretty lenient. It's not like the last one where almost everything got nerfed. This is now completely fine. Yeah. Good morning, Alexander. Welcome, welcome. Yeah, the heat wave is crazy. So will probably be not a crazy long stream today, otherwise I will melt. Because the heat is my PC is generating while like streaming, while playing, while like just having it on is very very high. So I cannot like stream for 4 hours straight, but I will make will make the time at least entertaining for you to watch, hopefully. Yeah. What class other than Necromancer would you recommend for 0 to hero run? I did it on Mesmer because I think Mesmer is really flexible in PvE and I like Mesmer. I think Necromancer is really easy and really good. I think Guardian is probably the next best option. I think if you had a choice between like all classes and you have no preference whatsoever, I think probably Guardian is one of the best ones to choose. Oh my lord. That is a lot of damage. I think we get the kill here. Yeah, it's like the turn potential of this build is pretty good, but my teammates also came, so I guess that's fine. Yeah, that is a pretty crazy stomp. Yeah, but I would say Guardian is probably, if you really wanted to pick a class for 0 to hero, Necromancer or Guardian is probably overall the best option there. Yeah. Yeah, and low intensity, I mean, low intensity is always there. Builds for every class that is low intensity, so you just have to go with the build that you enjoy the most of those low intensity builds and you will be fine. I would not say a specific class is needed to play low intensity from 0 to hero specifically. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I need definitely some solutions for like, I don't know, like cooling, like some, I don't know, some specific van for my PC or whatever. I don't know, something that makes it like easier to stream and make content in the heat in summer. Yeah, I mean, because that will not get better in the future. Like that will be happening almost every year now. Like I would be very surprised if that is like now an exception here. That was a pretty crazy like match, and I'm not even that low rated actually. It's crazy that it was such a stomp. Like that is like pretty like, yeah, that was a boring match to say the least. Did we have any like, yeah, we had like 2 people playing together, I guess. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I want to return to the game, but don't have Chance of Wilds and Visions of Eternity. Is it necessary? No, not at all. Like, I would say if you want to play absolutely all the meta builds all the time without an exception, then sure, having all the expansions is somewhat necessary. But I think that's in all games the case. Like, if you want to play the best in slot for every single class, then having everything is somewhat required. But if you just want to play the game and want to have fun, and I would say just play casually like 95% of the other players, it's completely fine. Like, I'm not joking. Especially Chant der Wilds is not giving you that much, and Visions of Eternity, I would say, is also not giving you insane amounts, especially if you are willing to play like somewhat older elite specs, some things that are not as fresh as the Visions of Eternity ones. I would say like you have still like builds. I have builds on my YouTube channel that don't use any expansion other than the first one, for example, and reach like over 40k DPS in PvE. So it's like, okay, it does not matter. You get like to the highest benchmark numbers with the old expansions. So I would say for most people that's not a big issue, but only for people like me, content creators, for people that want to have like 10 different like builds all the time, all of the meta builds, perfect benchmark numbers for every one of them. Yeah, sure, I would say, yeah, you definitely notice not having Spear, not having like the latest elite specs. That can happen, sure. But not a big issue for especially returning new players for sure. Yeah. Yeah, it's in most of Europe that is the heat wave. I would say like southern to middle Europe, that's central Europe, that's pretty much it. Not in Scandinavia as far as I know. I think they have it pretty like normal, but mostly in like, yeah, Germany, France, Italy, like Spain, they have really, it's really hot. Yeah. Welcome everybody. Yeah. Yeah. I got a discount on Visions of Eternity a week ago. They have changed it already. Yeah, I think there was like, it was like when they announced Guild Wars 3 over the weekend that they announced it. It was like essentially in this one weekend where they announced it. So at the beginning of, how was it called? June. At the beginning of June, there was this one time where they, like, that really was the only time that we had since the launch of the expansion that Visions of Eternity actually got crazy like sale. I think it was it 30% as well, or was it even 40%? I think it was crazy. So it was really, really just for Saturday and Sunday, I think, on this announcement weekend. And now it's like 3 weeks ago or something. And that's pretty much like, I would say, safe to say that the next few months you don't get a Visions of Eternity sale. I think the first one will probably be maybe in October or something. So when the expansion is fully out, everything is there, then you might get another sale. But for all the other expansions, currently sale 30% going on. So yeah, I would say if you consider buying any other expansion, especially the Elder Dragon Saga, where you get like 1, 2, 3 expansion in one bundle, I think that's really good value. Yeah. How do you feel between Catalyst and Evoker? What's the best bang for a buck without feeling like I'm playing piano? I think both of them are pretty piano heavy. I think like especially Catalyst is extremely piano heavy. I would certainly say Evoker is not as bad, but personally, what can I say? Like both of them can be very piano. I think both of them have low intensity options. Catalyst not so much, but Evoker has definitely low intensity options, but both of them are somewhat more spammy than, for example, what I'm currently on, like Mechanist. It's like 4 buttons and that's it. Catalyst presses like 10 and has very high APM. That's just how it is, yeah. Really like Guardian, but I have to play low intensity to do this ability. Can I play all the elite specs? You can play Firebrand for sure. I have a low intensity build about that. You can play low intensity Core Guardian, low intensity Dragon Hunter, low intensity Willbender. The only one that you cannot play as a Guardian, I would say, with low intensity is Luminary. Luminary does really not function as a low intensity build because you have to go in the Forge, you have to press buttons there to deal DPS, you have to weapon swap. It's really not made for low intensity Luminary, sadly, but all the other 3, Firebrand, Willbender, and Dragon Hunter, completely fine. Even Core Guardian, really, really good ones. Yeah, so I would say one of the better classes in that regard, for sure. Yeah, welcome, Leon. Welcome. I mean, if that, like, the problem is not necessarily my PC is like having issues with the PC getting hot. I think that's fine. It's cooling completely fine. It's just because it's running and it's making like heat, just producing heat by being there, by being on. It's just heating my room up. That's the whole issue, you know. And then outside it's very hot, so it just means during a heat wave, like right now or in summer in general, if I like work for 10 hours straight, or if I don't know, just stream for 10 hours straight, or some middle ground there, I will always have a very crazy amount of heat generation. That's why you will see me to start sweating at some point here in stream, because it's just making me like uncomfortable, you know, if it's like sitting to like some kind of heat generator, like a heater, like a radiator in summer. It's just not perfect. So I could get a van, like specifically for the PC, sure, but it would not necessarily make the room cold in that regard. You know, I would have to get an AC, I guess, specifically for my room. Maybe that could help, but yeah, that is an investment for the future, I guess. Yeah. Exactly, I'm turning into liquid as well. I feel you. Yeah. Welcome, Piggy. Welcome. How are you doing today? Syrma, do you think that the low-intensity mech Condi or power version is better, and why? That's a great question. That is a really good question, because I released, I think it was yesterday, the low-intensity condition mech that I'm actually currently on. And the interesting part here is, this build is probably the easiest low-intensity build to reach really high numbers. So low-intensity condition mechanist is 38k DPS if you just play decently and press the buttons correctly, so to say. 4 buttons, 38k DPS. Huge. I think there is almost no other low intensity build that reaches this number. But there is a big caveat to this thing. And that is that you really have to have a longer fight. So if the fight is over in like, let's say 30 seconds, maybe even a minute, you will not reach those numbers. That means that a power rifle mech, which is lower benchmark, I don't know, like depends a bit how many buttons you press, but 34, something like that, depending on an actual fight, something like that. So it has a lower benchmark, but in shorter fights, it's there after a couple of seconds. So like, let's say 10 seconds, something like that, you have this number. For condition mech, you have a higher end number, but it is also ramping up slower. So I would say for raids, typical raid fights, condition mech is a really good choice. But for fractals, I would say both of them are not perfect, but better play rifle mech. That's just, so to say, my summary for the most part. Yeah, keep that in mind. Exactly, an amalgam with heat, exactly. That's pretty much it. On Holosmith, like overheating when I play too much, when I... exactly. But which build do I have here? That one. Speaking of low intensity, I'm looking for a scrapper build. I found a moderate one. Is there an easier one? Your latest stream game modes scrapper is really fun. Yeah, I think that one is probably the best. Like, I'm currently playing the exact same build that you mentioned, so it's actually pretty good. I can showcase this here. But yeah, it's definitely, I would say, one of the easier builds. The problem with scrapper, the problem with, in general, any power-based engineers that is not rifle mechanist is that you really want to have kits, you know? Like, the problem is rifle is like carrying really hard because it does a lot of damage. And you can just spam the attacks and that's it. But if you play like Scrapper, if you play Holosmith, if you play Amalgam, you want to press other buttons and maybe even go into kits as well. So I think the low intensity version here would be somewhat like pressing the 2 skill of Hammer and maybe going in Grenade Kit and pressing the 2 skill here as well. And that's probably all that you do. Yeah, and then auto attack for the most part. The problem is if you play Quickness Scrapper, which I prefer to do because like quickness is a really good boon and like not having it is pretty bad, especially in open world, then you have to do combos and you cannot always combo with like just not having anything else up. That's why, for example, you want to have the whirl finishes, you want to have the leap finishes in there. And that is all a bit like, yeah, makes it not as low intensity as it could be, but I would say it's not as bad as like other high intensity build. So I would say that build with like pressing the 2 skill for the own, like as the only weapon skill with the Grenade Kit 2 maybe, that is probably the best option for you. But in general, you can also just camp Hammer and it will be fine as well. Yeah. After the next balance patch, will you theory craft with the new and improved Bladezone? Yeah, I will do like Bladezone, Harbinger. I will go over all of them, to be honest, and make builds about it. I think some of them are pretty straightforward and will not have crazy changes, but others are like, I think especially Bladezone, I think there will be like 3 different builds that I have to try on the first day when it launches. You know, heal Bladezone, I want to play a condition Bladezone, all of that stuff. I want to just see how it goes. I don't expect like crazy results, to be honest. I don't see it being like, oh my god, that's the best spec ever. But I will, you know, I take it what I get, you know, that's the important part. But it will be exciting for sure. Like, I will go over the notes later and we talk about it, but especially Bladezone is like one of the ones that gets a lot of like changes, a lot of reworks, and a lot of them I would say are for the better, because that's the interesting part. Bladezone is a really good DPS build in PvE. Like power DPS build, Bladezone is pretty good. The problem is, it is essentially only a power DPS, nothing else. So whatever you do, it's like you play power DPS and you play pretty much the same traits. There is no real changes that you do. Maybe the alacrity trait or something like that. And so they want to rework some of the traits that are completely like useless or not used at all. And that's why I'm pretty excited for the patch for sure. I will also, Druid is another one that is very, very cool. Like I think the theory crafting for Druid is a bit less than for Bladezone because the traits are pretty straightforward. What you, so to say, choose for healer, what you choose for DPS, what you choose for an alacrity DPS. But I will definitely look at Druid. I did not do a heal Druid build guide on my YouTube channel yet, but I will do one when this launches. And yeah, it will be very exciting to play more Druid because it got a little bit like power grab, to be honest. Oh, we did get everything already. Very good. Yeah, it's definitely like that you can use your blades, like gun saber attacks or the dragon trigger rather, and move while doing it is pretty cool. It depends a bit how fast you move, but I think that is definitely a game changer nonetheless. That this will be very, very good for like especially competitive modes where this is like complete trolling to this extent. It's still probably not insanely good, but it will be better. And in PvE that will be like make it way more accessible. Before it was really like if you didn't position well while casting it, you lose all your damage. Now you can actually somewhat correct your errors, and I think that's really good for sure. Are you also going to cover the alacrity DPS Druid build? Yes, I will cover all of the builds that are, so to say, created with the new update. I will of course not be able to do every single one of them in the first day and not even in the first week, because like I said, almost every class got a rework. I think only exception would be Guardian. Every other class got a rework, so I will go over all of them and make build guides about them and talk about them, of course, but it will take time. So probably like the first 2-3 weeks after the patch, I will hopefully push out all the videos. Yeah. I've been following your Necromancer Power Reaper build, but still trying to work out the best skill rotation. Bit confused if there's an optimum skill rotation rather than just smashing buttons. It depends a bit which situation you are in. In a group, I would say there's always some kind of optimal rotation. If you're in a solo situation or open world, I think the optimal rotation is often a little bit harder to understand or to, because it's always changing. You know, if you're in a solo situation, sometimes you need CC, then you change your rotation up. If you need healing, you change your rotation up. Stuff like that, that is really important to understand. So it depends a bit on what like situation you are in. Should probably change my graphic settings a bit. Yeah. So hope that makes sense. I'm working towards the legendary backpack from World vs. World because it's so much cheaper. Yeah, it takes a while though. That's really the negative of the World vs. World backpack is it is cheap, but it also takes longer. So essentially, if you want to get it as fast as possible, it's like one of the slowest backpacks, or probably the slowest backpack, because it's so heavily time gated. You need so many skirmish tickets. That takes a while. But if you enjoy World vs. World and do it anyway, or you have time, it's a really good one. And for sure, recommend it. Which build is the best when it comes to highest burst damage? That's either Dragon Hunter, Power Dragon Hunter of course, or Power Soul Beast in PvE. Those two builds have extremely high burst, like really, really high burst in the first like 5 to 10 seconds, because they have like, so to say, a lot of attacks that amplify the damage in a couple of like moments, and then you can use all your burst skills, and then it drops to pretty hefty. But the cool part is we will actually get buffs to Soul Beast, so Soul Beast will be even stronger after the patch. They buff it by over 5%, which is a pretty significant buff. So definitely a good one to play. Even right now for Fractals, for example, but after the patch, even more than now. Yeah, it's really good. There will be a turret buff. That is true. There will be a turret buff. For the Condi Blade Son, main hand will be a good weapon. Definitely. Sword is already a really good Condi weapon for any Condi warrior, and I think that will just improve over the course of the next balance patch. I'm a little bit like, that is one of the criticisms that I have about this balance patch, is that sword gets a rework. Like the main hand sword gets a rework, even though it is already a very useful weapon in all game modes. So it's like, why do they rework a weapon that is like definitely not necessary to rework? I'm not complaining it's a good weapon after the patch for sure. I'm just asking, why not reworking something that is underused, you know, something that is too bad, like for most game modes. I think that is I don't really get that idea, but I mean, cannot always get everything, I guess. Yeah. What do you think about Amalgam? I think Amalgam is really good. Amalgam will not change with the balance patch at all. It's a really good build in all game modes. It has really good solo builds. It has really good DPS builds. It has really good support builds. Whatever you play on Amalgam, it's really good. In PvP, it's one of the best side noders right now, or like in general, like really, really good builds. And even in World vs. World, it can be a really good DPS. I think it, and Roma, it's like, tell me one thing that Amalgam can't do. So I think Amalgam is just awesome. Yeah, really good. Nice. You get almost there with Ascension. Very good, Squoggy. Very good. I use main hand sword warrior in PvP Paragon. Yeah, I think the changes will not... Like, the problem with the main hand sword is that it's in competitive modes, you typically use it for the mobility. Like, the other things are nice and all, but the mobility will not change. And in PvE, you use it for the condition DPS, and that will also not change. You will get a lot of condition DPS with the sword. So essentially, like, I think this rework is like just a buff for almost every single situation. And I'm not sure if it needed that. You know, it's not like I'm complaining. I'm saying that's fine. I'm just saying, for me, it's like, if you do a balance patch, balance means for me you nerf stuff that is overperforming and buff something that's underperforming. If you change something that is already really good into something that is also really good, I don't know. I think that's a little bit like unnecessary to say the least. I'm not sure. What's your go-to Roma in World vs. World right now? I really like to play Evoker. I will do it later as well. I think Evoker Fresh Air Evoker is really fun. It's not the best draw mod by any means. It's just really fun. It's a skillful build, and it's really like that's really fun to play in my opinion. You will see it later. Yeah, I like to play that one. Longbow rework for Ranger. Yeah, I think a lot of people ask for that. Like they buff it the numbers all the time. Not this balance patch though, but in general they buff the numbers all the time. But they don't really like do reworks for Longbow, sadly, even though I think it could deserve one. Yeah, definitely the F1 immobilize is nice for sure. That is definitely something that will be a bit changed with the balance patch, but I guess it makes sense. They want to make it a bit more modern. Yeah, I have mained Necromancer. My whole guild was 2-time almost, looking to expand into an alt. I would like a class that will do well for fractals and maybe even raids and also support heal spec. I mean, that is pretty much every other class. Like every class can fill DPS and heal in all game modes. Like it's really like not as restrictive anymore. Let me know what kind of class fantasy you like to play. Do you like to play mages? Do you want to have like something that is like melee focused? Do you want to have something that is more bruisery, like or very squishy? Whatever you like, let me know, because that is like essentially I can tell you every other class can do that. Like you can play a healer on every class in PvE, that is really good. You can play a DPS in raids and fractals, that is really good for every class. You have to give me a bit more information what you like the most. Yeah. What is the fastest way to get badges of honor? I would say playing World vs. World in a Zerg and just killing a lot of enemies. That is pretty much the best way to farm them, even though it's like farm, because it's not really like you can say, okay, I will be able to get like 500 per hour. That's not gonna happen. You have to just consistently play and be patient. It's not something that you can say, okay, I will like get my how many I want just by standing AFK at a certain spot. That's not how it works. It's a really active currency. You get rewarded for playing a lot. You cannot really progress more. It's really Zerging gives you the most for the most part. And PPT, I guess. So killing a lot of like or defending and capturing objectives, I guess, can also be okay. Yeah, definitely I'm with you there. I think the warrior mains wanted another condition damage weapon, and now we get like a rework to one that is already used. So it's like, I don't know. Like I said, I think it would have been so good if they made, for example, a trait that changes certain, like for example, they did exactly that with the Bladezone trait. They made it so now you have no additional weapon on Bladezone, but the gun saber becomes a condition-based weapon. Why not make that for, I don't know, say a rifle or some underused weapon that is not used a lot? Make a trait in Core Warrior that makes it so that when you equip this trait, you lose a little bit of the power scaling of the weapon, but you get condition scaling on top of that. I think the rework for Sword is like, yeah, it's not bad on anything, but it's definitely like, it's already a good Condi weapon, so why would you like change the Condi weapon that is already used? I think it would have been better to make another one like that you normally don't use as a condition weapon. Yeah, that's just me. Exactly, I was hoping for a staff rework on Elementalist. That is definitely a weapon that is a little bit like in a weird spot, especially in PvE. But they didn't do anything there. They changed some attacks on staff for Weaver. I think that's the only one that got changes, but that is really like for almost everyone not affecting you at all. So yeah, a bit sad there for sure. Welcome everybody, welcome Sergeant Toba, welcome. I still think Harbinger should give quickness in World vs. World. Yeah, I think that is one of the changes that I'm a little bit sad about as well, because that made Harbinger really unique and really cool. Now it's gone, or like it will be gone. So you cannot share quickness anymore. So that's one of the biggest losers of the balance patch is like Harbinger in World vs. World. Before you get that wrong here, I really want to stress that it's just in World vs. World. In PvE you can still give quickness. It's just in World vs. World. And that was one of the really big unique selling points of Harbinger. So yeah, a little bit sad, but what can you do? Yeah. Is there a good PvE build for Evoker with specialized elements? Oh yes, there are a lot of them. Like you play fire specialized elements and you play like quickness or full DPS, like condition build, and you do a lot of damage, like a lot. Like over 44k or something. It's a lot of damage, yeah. Condi and Bladezone just feels weird. Yeah, I'm with you there. I think they are forcing some of the things a little bit too much, you know, forcing support in every spec, forcing condition damage, forcing power damage in every spec. That is, in my opinion, not necessary. But I guess they are the balance devs, so they can decide what they want to have their game looking like. I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan there. I think it's on Bladezone specifically, it's weird, but it's okay because it's like completely underused traits. I think some of the other traits in other elite specs are like, they just force it. And I think it's not perfect, but I'm not a balance dev. Some people say for the better, some people say for the worse, but I would be like, not be that happy. So for example, Dragon Hunter is a power-based DPS build, and it has like different traits that you can choose for different situations, but it's always a power-based either bruiser, or it's a tank, or it's some kind of power DPS. It's never a condition DPS. It will never be a crazy supportive spec, yeah, for allies. That is just how it's designed. And I think that would be very weird to force now a conditioned Dragon Hunter in there. I think that's not necessary. I think not every elite spec has to fill every single different role just because you can make traits like that. I think that would be a bit like too much, you know. That's my opinion there. Yeah. Yeah, I think the Warriors sword changes are, we have to see how they work out in game. I think they were, for me, they were unnecessary. If they are good, then it's okay for me personally, but I personally think they should have like put their effort and time in another weapon that is underused on Warrior. Like, I don't know, maybe Rifle, maybe give Rifle the 7th rework or whatever, but something that is underused and not Sword, which is very, very popular. Yeah. Snowcross has them, and I have them as well. It's the specialized elements ones. You can go to my YouTube channel or you can go to my website, !website, and I have them there as well. As usual, as usual. At least with Guild Wars 3, they can actively not add quickness and alacrity since they have stated that was a mistake. Yeah, I think that is true. That is definitely, that will not be happening in the game. We don't know anything about the combat yet though, so we have to see what maybe there will be buffs somewhat similar to that, but maybe only temporary as they were intended in Guild Wars 2. Yeah, but that is a completely different discussion, and I'm not sure if we should open that keg for now. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Patricia. Thanks a lot for posting it. Exactly. I think that every profession should be able to fit every role in PvE, PvP, and World vs. World, but not every elite spec. Exactly. Perfectly. You hit the nail on the head there. I think every single class should be able to fill every single slot in every single situation. But the key word here is class and not elite spec. If, for example, Elementalist could not be a healer in PvE, I would be sad. But it does not have to be every single elite spec is perfect for healing. For Elementalists, it's maybe a bad example because you always have your attunements, but for Guardian, for Necromancer, I think that is forcing it a bit too much, you know? Why? You know, I think it's, if you want to play a healing as a thief, you can go with Spectre. If you want to play a DPS build, you can go for Daredevil, Deadeye, or Antiquary. I think it's not necessary that Deadeye becomes a support on top of that. That's just not necessary. I think that is perfectly put. Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. I'm so hyped for the Druid changes. Yeah, they will be exciting. I am with you there, with you there. I think it eats away at a class identity. Yeah, for sure. I think it's like you have an identity of a class, a mindset of some kind of headcanon that you have, and then you can change it so much that essentially it's just like you use different skills to achieve the exact same thing. It's a little bit sad. I talked about it in a video like a year ago or something, where I said like class identity, you have to balance very carefully. You know, people want to have every spec being able to, so to say, being played, but at the same time, I think it's a little bit sad if every single spec can do every single thing for like no negative effect, essentially. That is a bit like too much in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, like I said, they are the balance devs. They can decide what they want to do with their game, and apparently they want to make every spec somewhat be able to play power, Condi, maybe even support. Yeah, that's I guess what they want to do. Welcome, Lumi. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Hope you're doing fine as well, and you actually can do like stuff even in the heat during the heat wave or wherever you are. Do you think the Warrior sword change will change Berserker Primal Fury sword skill? Oh my god, my whole team died. I think they would have said something if that would change the Primal Fury skill. Yeah, we take a look at the notes now, but I personally think, honestly, they would have said something if they would have big changes that will affect the F1 skill in Berserk form. I would be very surprised if they changed that skill as well. I don't see it, to be honest, because that is a very good skill and very fun skill. And I have to be honest, it's maybe even a broken skill in some game modes because it also destroys projectiles, which is just insanity at this point. So yeah, let's take a look at it. So I have it here prepared because I knew we will talk about Warrior a lot. It's just something that is like makes sense, you know. So let's talk about that. Yeah, have they reversed their view on the Holy Trinity since classes can do everything? I don't know. We will have to see. We need some kind of manifesto to know what they actually want to balance around and what not. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about Warrior first. You know, we talked about the sword changes, and you can see here now they make Warrior Sword, which is now a hybrid-based weapon in like PvE and also competitive modes, because Final Thrust and even the auto tech, they have good power scaling on top of the conditions they apply. But they want to make it a pretty clear condi-based weapon because they now give bleeding as well to Savage Leap. And the interesting part here is that they remove Final Thrust and make Rend instead. And Rend is an Immobilize, which you will lose now from the F1. So you still have an Immobilize, but it's not the F1 anymore. And it will also inflict bleeding if it hits. So yeah, it's very condition focused, and you will probably lose a little bit of power scaling from Final Thrust. And then you have Bloodthirster, which is again applying bleeding on the F1, but it will also give you some heal depending on how many bleeding stacks the enemy has. And that can be very strong in competitive modes, and you will see that with a lot of the changes that they do here, that they actually focus the competitive modes quite drastically. And I'm not saying that the changes will not affect PvE as well, please don't get me wrong here, but I think those changes are, the mindset is like we balance around competitive modes, we design the specs around competitive modes, and then we adjust the numbers to somehow make sense in PvE as well. That's an interesting approach, to say the least, because 90% of the player base plays PvE mostly. So yeah, but yeah, sword changes, not completely sold on yet. We have to see how good they are, to be honest. But they also make some changes to Hammer, which I think is good, because Hammer is a bit like not as strong from the performance. Nice, thanks for the raid, really appreciate it, TomTom. Welcome everybody, welcome raiders. We are just talking about the balance changes, so you didn't miss that much. So welcome everybody, hope you had a nice stream. And welcome, yeah. If they made skills with PvE in mind, it would be pretty plain skills. That is true, I agree. I think that is, I'm not saying this is a bad approach to design skills in competitive mindset and then adjust them to PvE. I think that's okay. I think it's just weird that you make a weapon that is used in competitive modes and PvE and say, this one we give a rework, because it's like, is that really necessary? That's my whole point of this. I think most of the other changes, I like the offense dagger changes. I think those are good. I really like the hammer changes, and especially I like the blade zone changes that you can move. I think that is really good. Like, that will affect PvE probably more than PvP, because in PvP, Blade Zone is just not a good spec from the numbers, and you can see there are no number changes whatsoever for the gun saber and stuff like that. So it's not crazy hard hitting, and that will not change. But in PvE, it is a really good spec, and it will get buffed, so to say, by this for sure. Yeah. I think Blade Zone will be 100% be worth playing after the update, 100%. It's even now worth playing, but you have to be way better than after the update. After the update, it's easier to play, it's, so to say, more rewarding, because you can play also support if you wanted to, and even condition, I guess. We have to see the numbers. I will definitely build craft around it. I cannot make like crazy theory crafting yet, because we don't know the numbers. You know, for example, like, grants you increased flow rate when swapping to the gun saber in combat. So how much does it grant you more? Like, for example, or how now grants barrier to allies every time you convert a certain amount of flow into charges. How much barrier? How much flow do you have to convert? That will be different for each game mode, sure, but it makes support viable or not viable depending on the numbers here. So I cannot like tell you if the rework is good or not, because I need to see if the numbers are supporting it, or if it's just like, yeah, technically you can play support Blade Zone, but the numbers are so bad that like you will just die because you have no healing output. So that is, yeah, we have to see. We have to see. This is I would say it's a warrior buff for sure. It's somewhat of a rework as well. So some people that like, for example, the traits that are somewhat changed here or reworked, it's a nerf as well. But for most people, it's a buff. Like warrior is buffed for sure, I would say. Yeah. But it's like, it's not increasing the numbers technically. It's more like making it better, more useful, more usable. That's more it, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm doing well. It's just very hot here. I hope you survived your stream as well without melting. Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully you can like get some like input here from my, I don't know, ranting about the changes now if you want. Yeah. I bought the Visions of Eternity Ultimate Edition after using your referral. I hope it worked. Yeah, thanks. Really appreciate it, Marcel. Really appreciate it. In general, if you want to support me, you can always use my referral link. I think it's even pinned today in the Twitch chat. If you want to use it, it's always in my description as well. For no additional cost, if you purchase any Guild Wars 2 expansion, you can support my channel. So thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. Yeah. And adding support in Condition Blade Zone because maintenance mode? maybe. I would not go as far, but I would say it's definitely, I like reworks, so I think it's good to make those reworks. I'm not sure if we can talk much more about Blade Zone without trying it. Like I said, I will try to make a support Blade Zone work. I will try to make a Condition Blade Zone work as soon as the patch launches. Maybe even make some kind of like crazy fun solo build. Maybe make a, I don't know, maybe make a roaming Blade Zone work. Yeah, we will have to see. But I cannot like theory craft right now without knowing the numbers, sadly. Good point, hydrating. Thanks for reminding me. Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's let's go to Thief. You know, we talked enough about Warrior, so maybe we have some Thief enjoyers here in chat as well. And I will share my thoughts here a bit about Thief, because Thief is one of the specs that doesn't get that much. Yeah. Thief gets some buffs to the traits to some extent. It gets more stealth access, which is essentially in PvE like completely no one cares. It's more in competitive modes, and even then I think it's like, yeah, sure, you could make some stealth roaming builds even better, but they already have stealth, so I'm not sure if that changes too much. It's more like the pistol whip that gets now to like flawless execution, so we will lose pistol whip. If the damage numbers are high enough, I think that will see play, which is really fun. I'm not sure if like the numbers are high enough though. I don't know. Probably they will be, but sometimes they make changes just to make a change, and then the numbers are so low that no one plays it nonetheless. Yeah. Thanks, Loco. Really appreciate it. Yeah. Thief hater. Just need to know how to beat them. Yeah, I think like Thief, to be honest, Thief gets like a big nerf and for competitive modes, and that's Silent Scope here. This trait, you can see it here, enter stealth when you dodge roll with a rifle. The second part here is insanely good. It's a Deadeye trait, and it makes it so that Deadeye is essentially the best Thief build to use the rifle on, or the only Thief build that actually can make use out of the rifle really good. Because when you dodge in combat, or even out of combat, you get stealth, which is insanely good in competitive modes. A dodge roll is already really good and easy to get as a Thief, and then dodging makes you stealth, and then sniping you from stealth or whatever is so easy. It's such a crazy trait, and it is completely gone. It is gone. They don't have stealth anymore with this trait. It just gives you precision. So that is a big nerf. So if you hate Thief, and especially for roaming Thief in World vs. World or something, this is a change that you will love. And it makes it, you have more stealth access with your utility skills, but more active ones. It's not just dodging. And I think that's a healthy change, but for all the like Thief enjoyers, the Thief players, this is a big nerf. A big nerf. Yeah. I really just hope that those changes are not making it so that Thief gets in a spot where no one plays Thief anymore. I'm personally, I don't like fighting Thief in World vs. World that much, but I think it's okay to have a spec that is not as fun to interact with if it's still like beatable. And I think Thief should be playable, and that's the important part. And I'm not sure how much they have that in mind as well. But with the Deadeye's changes, Deadeye's mark changes, that's also pretty good. You can now teleport if you're using a melee weapon in your main hand, which is pretty cool. So overall, I would say Thief, specifically Deadeye, gets nerfed. All other Thief specs pretty much buffed, reworked, changed. Yeah. Yeah, you could play Rifle Deadeye or Daredevil rather, or even Spectre or Antiquary, I guess. But the problem is you don't get the stealth there either. You know, it's like you nerf something down to the unplayable spot, you know. Have you ever seen a Rifle Antiquary in any game mode? No, because it's bad. And nerfing Deadeye Rifle down to this level doesn't make it better. It makes it in general the Rifle worse. So I think the Rifle is now probably the worst weapon on Thief. Funnily enough, yeah, that's I guess how it is. Yeah, sadly. Yeah. Yeah, I think in general they have really cool, like, I think Death's Advantage being, this is a good change. That is definitely a good change that it's ground targeted. That makes it definitely more playable. And I think also the Deadeye's mark skill is now way better. But I'm not sure if like this can compensate for this like dodge insanity with this stealth here. I'm not sure. We have to see. Because the thing is always like one trait that makes the spec insanely good and you completely change this trait, you cannot easily compensate by just changing a bit of the numbers of other traits or making it a bit more usable with other traits. I think that is the hard part to balance here. And we have to see. I think like especially Daredevils in PvP will probably love the changes. I'm not sure if Deadeye will be like top tier. Yeah, I could imagine like seeing some kind of flawless execution, like stealth, like Daredevil. I could imagine that because Sword is a really good weapon in PvP. Yeah, you have to see. And Condi Spectre is really good. Like Condi Spectre is one of my favorite Thief specs, and I think that's pretty much unchanged here. Yeah, you get a little bit like shuffled here, but overall, yeah, unchanged. I think Thief not as crazy. Yeah. Then we have Revenant. That's essentially Revenant is like nothing, and then you have Renegade. Renegade? I don't know how many people here in chat play Renegade. I would be really interested to see how many of you actually play Renegade. Yeah, welcome Taste, welcome. The question is, Renegade is a spec that is, in my opinion, pretty unpopular. And now the question is, will the changes be here that they do here for Renegade change this like unpopular spec for whatever reason to be more popular? I hope it does. I hope it is not broken though. I think in competitive modes this all for one trait can be very annoying because it's like recharging and spamming your spirits that you cannot target and you get energy. That can be very obnoxious. But if they balance it well, I think there can be a place when Renegade is balanced and played but not overpowered. I hope that will be the case. I still think it's really funny that they push like a heal Renegade with this like healing now on Righteous Rebel. I'm not sure if that will make it work, but if they buff like Herald, Renegade, all the healers in Revenant all the time, at some point they are really good. So we will have to see. I think this will be not enough, but we will have to see. Yeah. I have a friend that plays Renegade on PvP and World vs. World. The thing is, he's really good at player. I mean, I think Renegade is not a bad spec. I think it's just like people might not like the class fantasy as much, and it's like not meta. So it's like people that like to play the meta will never go to it right now, and people that like to go with the class fantasy that they enjoy might not like Renegade, so you end up with like almost no one playing Renegade, even though it's not a bad spec, especially in PvE. I think it's like one of the burstiest damage dealers out there if you play it correctly, and a power-based build, of course. And I think that will not change. It's still one of the best like damage dealers out there for bursty fractals, for example. But at the same time, I'm not sure if those changes make it more interesting to players that have not played it before, because yeah, we have to see. You know, maybe the numbers are good enough and meta players will like migrate to it, but for now, I'm not sure. I'm not so sure. I think it's pretty funny that Revenant like gets essentially Renegade only changes. Everything else is like, yeah, not really affecting anything. I don't know. You see that, like we got now, Revenant gets a Renegade rework. Thief gets a Deadeye rework. Warrior gets a Bladestone and a Sword rework. So almost every spec now got one specific picked out elite spec or weapon that they said, okay, this needs to be changed. And they don't change only the numbers, but they actually changed the functionality of it. Pretty interesting. Yeah. The thing is, aside from really good players, Renegade is out of the conversation. Yeah. I think that the problem is that you need to be a good player to make Renegade work in PvE really well, because it's not a spec that can be played very like. I have a low intensity build coming up about it, slight tease here, but in general, Renegade is a spec that needs to be somewhat high maintenance. If you want to get the high damage numbers with it, you have to like have brain power, you know, and put it in the rotation and in the burst. If you cannot land that, it's pretty useless. And I think that will not change. It will not make it extremely easy to get the damage out if the numbers are not like insanely overpowered. I'm not sure, we will have to see. Seems like an interesting patch, especially since it's function, not just numbers. Exactly. I think the last patch, people were always like, oh my god, April balance patch changes like 10 to 15%, all damage numbers go down. This is the best patch or the craziest patch ever. But I have to be honest, it was one of the most boring patches for me, because like if you shift every single number down by 10%, nothing really changes. I like functionality changes like this way more. Some of them are misses, don't get me wrong, but reworks of stuff that is underused like Renegade, I think that's exactly what we need. And we see that with some other specs coming in a few minutes, is exactly what I want. Like I want to have reworks that make me as a player be more interested in playing a spec that might not be as interesting before the patch. And I think that's really the case with Renegade, that's the case with Bladezone, and we'll get that with some others as well here. What's the date of this patch? You can see it here. It's the 14th of July. So essentially like 2.5 weeks. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Okay, so let's go Druid now. Yeah, I already talked about some buffs to Ranger Soul Beast, like a bit more damage, and Gale Shot gets a bit more damage, but really the biggest thing is Druid. Druid gets essentially the ability to play Alacrity DPS in PvE. Because now it's so Alacrity, the trait for it, and the DPS trait are in the same spot. So you have to decide, do you go for DPS Druid or do you go for Alacrity Druid? There is no option in between. But now they moved the Alacrity trait in another tier, so you can get Alacrity and the DPS trait, and you can play Alacrity Heal or Alacrity DPS, which is really cool. And at the same time, they buffed the healing output, essentially. Not only healing output, also support output. Druid overall is slowly getting a little bit power crept by the other specs getting better. Druid didn't get any changes for years. Now it's getting buffed, and you will see support druids in PvP, I would guess, and you will see more support druids in PvE, especially because you get more healing output, you get easier use, and just more value in general. So Druid, big W. So if you enjoy Ranger, if you enjoy healing on it, Druid will still be the go-to option, and that will not change with this patch. Yeah. I agree, I've beeped waiting for class function reworks for a while instead of just numbers. Exactly. The numbers are not bad at all. I think number changes are good if you do it well, but I think reworks is where the real meat is, where you really are getting like excited for it, in my opinion. Yeah. Yeah, Druid will be huge. Like Druid changes are like, I think actually in all game modes the Druid changes are good, especially in PvE, where Druid is a spec that is really flexible. It's just the numbers and the functionality is just outdated. You know, that you have a healing field, for example, on the rejuvenating tides here, that you need to channel for 2 seconds or something, whereas you have like, I don't know, Elementalist that just presses one button and has the same effect for like essentially no negative. It's crazy. This is now way better, for example. They changed some of the healing output. They changed like the ranges. I think it's like Druid is just big buff. Like rework, yes, but it's also big buff. Yeah. I'm happy about the Druid changes. I always cringe when I see Druid in Strikes of Fractal lobbies now due to the low healing output. Yeah, I think the problem is like a lot of players that play Druid right now don't know how to get the somewhat high healing output, because Druid has pretty good burst heal, but the problem is if you don't play it well, you will not access it that easily. So that's why it's so important that they buff it, so that even players that are not crazy good at it can still get good enough healing, because almost all other healers can easily push out enough healing nowadays. But Druid was like in a weird spot where if you did not know exactly every single like detail about Druid, then you might struggle on like certain bosses, even though it's not really a tough boss at all. Yeah. For sure, for sure. What is better between Dragon Hunter and Renegade if I want to main a bow? I think both of them are decent. Both of them are not like insanely good with the bow. I think in competitive modes, Dragon Hunter with the bow is probably your best bet. But if you play PvE specifically, I think both of them can be played with a like Renegade with a short bow and Dragon Hunter with a long bow. Both of them are pretty good as a DPS option, but they are both not like the only choice. You know, it's not like the signature weapon of them necessarily anymore. Yeah. So I would say choose what you like more. Competitive modes, it's definitely Dragon Hunter though. Yeah. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it, Tomian. Thanks a lot for the Prime. 8 months already. And thanks, Kuyoso. Really appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Thanks for the Prime. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. Yeah. So, now let's talk about Necromancer. Necromancer gets some changes, but I would say the core changes are not like... I don't really want to talk about them because they are like just buffs. Like for the most part, it's just a little bit of a buff. You get more Reaper damage. You get more power damage. Necromancers in general like get more value. I don't know. I feel like you get some changes to how death magic worked, but nothing like I would say stands out for the most part here. The big change for Necromancer, like I said, there will be one rework per class, and the big change is Harbinger here. Harbinger gets, I would say, only 4 changes on paper, but they will affect it quite drastically, how it is actually functioning. So we will have to see how good those are. Again, like Bladestone, we don't know the exact numbers for those. But we have, for example, no quickness anymore in World vs. World. This is a huge nerf. This is probably making Harbinger as a support pick completely unplayable. I don't know what boon they will grant. Maybe they said it on stream, but I'm not remembering it. But it's a big nerf. It's a big, big nerf. So now you grant it when you enter Harbinger Shroud and you use your 2 skill in Shroud instead of pulsing it. So that will be like completely like null change, so to say, in PvE. But in World vs. World, that will be a big nerf. And also for roaming. Keep in mind, if you play a roaming Harbinger, you played that trait as well. And now it's, so to say, worse because you don't get quickness anymore. Harbinger, big hit. Big, big, big. Yeah. But I guess that's what they want. The biggest issue right now, in my opinion, is that new players, when looking up which healer to pick, they get outdated information. Alacrity heal druid, and it's just not newbie friendly. I mean, the thing is, I try to make videos and try to update you. So if you stay updated and watch my videos, you should be like somewhat like knowing everything. But I get what you mean. The problem is like a new player does not really know exactly what they are looking for. So it's really hard for me as a content creator to talk about things so that a new player that watches my videos consistently always gets the most up-to-date information. There will always be changes. There are 4 balance patches per year. So how can like ArenaNet, how can I transmit information in a way that new players always get the most up-to-date information and exactly what they're looking for? So that's why tier lists, in my opinion, are pretty good. They help a lot. That's why I'm a tier list enjoyer, for one of the reasons. But it's hard. So if you have any suggestions, let me know. I'm always happy to change stuff. Welcome, chat. Welcome, welcome. I'm doing fine. It's just very hot. Let's hydrate a bit. But other than that, it's fun here. Yeah, I agree. I think the World vs. World Harbinger changes are somewhat sad. I like this build a lot, roaming and surging, but it's definitely gone. And I think they want it gone. They don't want to make any changes, even though if the feedback is like everyone wants like quickness Harbinger to be a thing, I think they really want to make like quickness pulsing not a thing anymore. Hi Syrma, welcome. Came back to the game and love your videos. What is an easy boon DPS you would recommend? Tell me your class and I can tell you what's the best boon DPS, but in general, I would say all of them have really easy ones. Like one of the easiest to play is probably like Chronomancer. Yeah, funnily enough, you can play Condition Chronomancer that will get buffed. We will talk about it in a couple of minutes. Condition Chronomancer is so good. Like Condition Chronomancer with like just spamming your Phantasm skills, it's really easy, really good. One of the best boon DPSs in PvE because you can play Quickness or Alacrity. It's really, really good. But tell me your class and I can give you more detailed answer there. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for new players, it's a big MMO, big things, a lot of questions, a lot of confusion in the beginning. I guess that's the case. I tried my best to ease this introduction in the game, but it's definitely not easy. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay, so I think the other changes here that we get like a power or condition based option that we already have, but more active, is I think fun. I think the traits were pretty boring in like just pulsing power damage, pulsing condi damage, or pulsing quickness. It's pretty boring. Now it gets more active. I think that's good. Like overall, I think Harbinger, if you don't play World vs. World, the Harbinger changes are big W. But if you play any World vs. World, you will definitely notice the negatives, because you were only running Deathly Haste, nothing else. So Deathly Haste is now completely like, it's probably a dogshit trait in World vs. World, to be blunt here. Because quickness is the reason you took it, and any other boon that is somewhat reasonable to be pulsed is like not good. Like if it's might, if it's vigor, if it's like fury, it's like no one cares, you know? It's just quickness or alacrity that are like crazy. Of course, like stability would also be crazy, but that's not it. So yeah, we will have to see. Pretty. Who's the real winner? I mean, I will talk about the real winner when I'm done with all of them. So we have like a couple more to go, like four more to go, and then we can talk about the real winner. Yeah. Yeah, Quickness Untamed is also a good point. Good point by QWERTY here. Yeah, it's definitely, Quickness Untamed is also a really good one. It's really tanky, does a lot of damage, and it's somewhat easy to play as well. Yeah. Came back myself after probably 6 years or so, playing through Path of Fire and Heart of Thorns expansion, now as a Necromancer Reaper. My old characters were Elementalists and Rangers, so wanted something different. I mean, that makes sense. Reaper is a really good one for that, for sure. Hope you're enjoying it. Hope you're enjoying it. So, Mesmer. In general, just some cooldown reduction, like baseline changes, nothing crazy here. But we also get, and that's the important part, some trait changes, especially Chaos. Yeah, Chaos trait changes. Chaos will lose some damage on passive condi builds, like low intensity builds and stuff like that. And you will lose some passive CCing with Method of Madness. But at the same time, you get Shaper of Chaos, which is now giving you some kind of really cool interaction that when you have a Chaos Aura and when you grant yourself another Chaos Aura, you have to grant yourself the Chaos Aura, it detonates, so you lose the Chaos Aura, but you do some conditions around you and you get some boons. So this is a really fun trait. I like those more interactive traits. I think that's more fun in competitive modes and it's also more fun in PvE. So I really like that. If the numbers here are good, really cool trait. But keep in mind, this has to be somewhat counteracting the nerf of like a loss of 240 condition damage that you don't have anymore because some of the trait changes happening here. So this is definitely somewhat like of a nerf buff, and if the numbers here are good enough, it's a buff. If the numbers are worse or bad, you will have a nerf for condition chaos builds. So we have to see how that works, but definitely a fun change, and especially a buff to Mirage where you can chaunt a lot and get a lot of like leap finishers through chaos fields, and then you get chaos armor. That can be really, really good. And then you have Prismatic Understanding, which is now essentially like a useful trait again. It gives you stealth on your F4, and you get like longer stealth access or as usual, and then you get some boons like Region when you enter and Protection Resolution when you leave stealth. So that can be a really good trait in competitive modes. Maybe in roaming, I would say, for the most part. All other changes not really affecting PvE at all, I would say. And then the big one, the big loser here, Virtuoso. Yeah, Virtuoso loses the unblockable blade songs. Yeah, that is the World vs. World change again. You have now to take Psychic Force, and even then you have less unblockable. So it's a big, big nerf, and Virtuoso is definitely, even in PvP, that is a big nerf. So yeah, Virtuoso enjoyers in competitive modes, that is not what you want to see. I mean, what can I say? I guess the Balance team doesn't like Virtuosos and doesn't like Harbingers. In World vs. World and PvP specifically. Yeah. Is it worth buying Legendary Luck from the Wizard's Vault? If you're really desperate, it can be worth it, but I would say for most players it's better to use my like Magic Find guide, how to maximize it and be a bit more patient and spend a little bit gold instead of the Astral Acclaim, and you get it easier that way. But if you're really desperate, it's somewhat decent. It's not, I would not recommend it, but if you're really desperate, you can do it, Jollyman. Hopefully that answers your questions. Yes, Vashade, that's actually what I'm working on. I'm just so busy and I'm not a web developer, so it takes a long time to actually get like changes to my website out. But this text system for the up-to-date state of a patch or like a video is exactly what I'm working on. Yes, exactly that. Yeah. So just stay tuned. I will get to it. I will get to it. Yeah. Yeah, Mirage will be better than Deadeye for sure. 100%. I would be very surprised if that is not the case. Yeah. What are my good options for quick DPS and Fractals if I don't like Chronomancer and Necromancer? I mean, Quickness, Untamed, and Scrapper. Those are probably the best ones, I would say. Scrapper specifically with the super speed is insanely good. But you can also play like Untamed, I would say, very well. Those two are, in my opinion, the best options for Quickness DPS, yeah, for the most part. Any effects on Virtuoso and PvE? No. Virtuoso and PvE, if you play especially Power Virtuoso, unchanged. Really, there is no change for Power Virtuoso that is like worth mentioning. For Condition Virtuoso, you have a slight adjustments to like your not even, I don't even think so. For Condition Virtuoso, I think there was once upon a time where you run Chaos, but nowadays you don't do that anymore. So it's like Virtuoso and PvE is essentially like unaffected. Like not a single change that is actually affecting you. I guess you can use your Signet of Domination more often, but that's pretty much it. So yeah, I think if you're PvE Virtuoso enjoyer, don't care about the patch notes. Nothing here to see. Nothing to see. Yeah. I mean, if you play Virtuoso in competitive modes, then it's a bit of a sad balance patch, but if you play it in PvE, nothing changes. Is Make's Axe the only weapon I can pair with Shortbow for Renegade? Pretty much in PvE, yeah. There is no better... You couldn't go with Spear and Shortbow, but then you have so much energy drain that you probably cannot balance it. So I would say, yeah, Mace Axe is top priority to be used in a condition build on Renegade in general, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Untamed can't pre-stack, but it's really good in like carrying groups with like just a lot of CC, projectile destruction, boon removal. You know, you're like a one-man army, so to say, for Fractals. So in pack groups, that can be really good, but you are correct. If you want to pre-stack, Untamed is not the best option. That's why I said Scrapper is, in my opinion, the best quickness DPS for Fractals. Yeah. Or Troubadour. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, in PvP, it's definitely, like, I would say the nerf for Virtuoso is mostly in World vs. World, but it will be affecting PvP as well, but there it's not as bad as in World vs. World. In World vs. World, this is a huge nerf, but in PvP, it's also somewhat of a nerf, yeah. Yeah, I mean, Condition Staff Mirage is pretty bad in PvE and shorter fights or AoE situations. It's really like okay in like bosses and longer fights, but if you're like in Fractals and stuff, I think Staff Mirage is not the best option. Yeah. 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 So now let's talk about Guardian, the only class that doesn't really get any reworks. So we will go a bit quicker here because essentially you get a Willbender buff in PvE, Power Willbender specifically, and you get some adjustments to some symbols. Nothing like here worth mentioning. Maybe you get some super speed access on support guardians, and then you get some Dragon Hunter like buff nerfs in PvP. So you get more defense, but you get less offense. So I guess that will probably make it so that you play Dragon Hunter more of a bruisery, maybe even bunker build, whereas the DPS Dragon Hunter is like essentially like losing a little bit of its damage output, but gets more defense. So maybe you will see more Dragon Hunters. But overall, Guardian definitely the spec with the least amount of like impact. I think Guardian is the spec that will probably, if you would have my opinion, I think Guardian is the spec that just stays exactly where it is in the meta with every single spec. Nothing really changes here. Those are mostly number changes. Maybe in PvP you will see some more bruisiness. Yeah. Nice chat, really appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Thanks. Thank you all for the content. Website update sounds amazing. Yeah, thanks. I mean, I will get to work as soon as I can. So thank you so much for your kind words, yeah, and your support. Appreciate it very much. Very nice. But yeah, glad you enjoy the content as well. And overall, I think Guardian for sure. Like, if you enjoy Guardian, I think it's in a good spot, and it will not change. And it doesn't really need a rework. That's the summary here. Yeah. Yeah. Is Quickness Scrapper also great for Condi-CMs? It's okay. I would say for Condi-CMs are not really Condi anymore because it's like they nerfed the numbers of the health bars. And if you have crazy good damage output, which you can have for power-based builds, you can actually skip phases nowadays. So CMs are not necessarily Condi anymore. It's more like how good is your damage output. then Scrapper can be good. But I would say in a lot of cases, like playing a condition-based quickness build or like a ranged quickness build is probably still a bit better, a bit safer for a lot of puck situations. But I would say you can nowadays make it more so work than before. Yeah, more so than before. Hope that makes sense. And Ghost API is probably like putting it quite well here, I would say. Yeah. Then we have Engineer. Engineer is probably, together with Guardian, one of the least interesting specs. A bit more interesting than Guardian, in my opinion. Get some changes, some buffs to Toolkit and like maces, and some turret buffs. But in general, you get some trait reworks in how is it called? Inventions trait line. So you get like a little bit more movement speed. You get like some more like region, like, yeah, I mean, will that be like buffing the trait line so much that you now use it? Probably not. Sapping Device can be the only trait that can be very, very strong in competitive modes. So when you immobilize or disable a foe, depending on how much internal cooldown it has, you weaken enemies. And that can be insanely good. If that has no internal cooldown, or if it has like 1 second internal cooldown, you will have perma weakness on the enemy, even if they have conic lenses. That is absolutely disgusting. And you might run this. If that has like a 10-second internal cooldown or something, it's pretty much useless. So we will have to see how it functions. Because Engineer has a lot of immobilizes on disables. If you run that in a Zerg, you will have weakness on the enemies all the time. That is pretty, or in a roaming situation, yeah, will be very annoying. We have to see. Is Reaper Viper build still viable after the patch? Yes. Typically on Reaper you'd like to play Griefing, but if you don't have access to that, Viper is completely viable as well, yes. Trying to learn Scrapper but having 3 kits is just too much. I mean, I have a build guide with only 1 kit or even 0 kits on my YouTube channel. You can always find it, of course, on the website as well. ! Website in the chat. And that is really good, or in the description. And that is really good to start out with Scrapper. So you don't have to run 3 kits. I think that is too much for most players. Going for 1 kit or 0 kits is probably safer, for sure. Yeah. Can I do a one for all PvP World vs. World Fractal Grades Luminary guides with Luminary build with Spear and Greatsword? I think, yeah. I think that's possible, yeah. I might do one in the future because it's like, do I not have one? I'm not sure, but like this is like a spec like power-based build with like especially Spear. It's pretty common to play it like that. The problem is I did not really continue my series with like this like one build for all game modes, because it's just at this point some of the builds are really like way worse because of like you playing a competitive build in a PvE situation. And some of the new elite specs are really like either you play a build that is suited for competitive modes or you play a build that is suited for PvE. Making everything in one build is just in Guild Wars 2, it's not really designed that way, so that's why I'm not pushing those videos anymore, but maybe I can make something work like that. Maybe, yeah. Is Druid viable in Fractals? As a DPS build, in Condi fight specifically, yes. As a healer, I would say even after the changes, Druid is not really that good as a healer. It's better play Troubadour, Chronomancer, Luminary, Paragon, they are just better. You know, the problem is like Druid is really good in raids as a healer, because there your utility actually makes sense. But in Fractals you need stability and Aegis, and that's 2 of the things that Druid does not have that much access to. So it's just, you make your support worse for no real benefit. And that's why I would say if you have another option, Druid is probably not the pick. Yeah. Hopefully that makes sense. Thanks, Patricia, for posting it. Thanks, really appreciate it. Yeah. And then we have the big one. You can see how much you have to scroll for Elementalist. I saved the biggest one for last year as usual, because it is really a lot. Like a lot. And essentially you get the half of the changes are just buffs to underused weapons in PvE. Like you get sword buffs, you get spear buffs, you get hammer buffs, you get dagger mainhand buffs, and you get an inferno buff. So big W for Elementalist enjoyers that don't want to run a scepter, just straight up. Let me hydrate after saying that. But in general, this is something that is like very much appreciated. I think those changes are insanely good. I'm happy that we get them, because I think Scepter is in such a weird spot that like it does not matter. You know, ask me which build you are playing or let's do it the other way around. If you say you run a Scepter on Elementalist, I could tell you 10 different builds that you could be playing. Because Scepter is essentially the weapon for almost every spec. It doesn't really matter what you play, it's Scepter on Elementalist. So I hope those changes make it a bit more like you have some kind of choice what you can pick. But we have to see. We have to see. But I think Carol is actually like pretty good here. Like this is a good point. Like any good world versus world roaming build is self-sufficient enough that it's good enough for open world build for any content. I think that is true, but the problem is like roaming builds often use like gear stats like Celestial, like Marauder, something that is like not as, or for example like Fireworks Rune or something that gives you boon duration, expertise or whatever, that you cannot transfer into PvP that easily. So in PvP, what do you run then? Like if you run Celestial like Harbinger in PvP, in World vs. World, how can you transfer that in PvP? You cannot. And in PvE, I think you're correct. In open world, it's very like you can easily play a roaming build in open world and be completely fine. Probably a really good solo build on top of that. But as soon as you go into group situations where a solo build is like completely garbage, yeah. So it's like, how can you make like 4 different game modes that are very different in what they actually want from a certain build into one build? That's why I stopped doing the series after making one video for each character or each class, because the problem is always that people said, oh, I will use this build in every game mode and I will go into challenge mode fractals and play a DPS build with this, like play this build as a DPS build. And I think that's not what my intent was. It was more the intent for getting into the class as a new player, playing this build as a new player. And if you don't want to go into tryhard content. But as soon as you go in a group and you play a solo build, your group will hate you because you have no real support elements typically and you have less DPS. So it's just the worst of the worst. And I think that's the problem with like making builds that are worth playing in all game modes. You have to make so many sacrifices to make that work that in a lot of cases, it's just not worth it. That's why I didn't do it. And I hope that makes sense. And I hope I got my points across. Yeah. But yeah, I think definitely the Elementalist changes are really, really good. Really, really good. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The Wi-Fi is on, Patricia. Exactly. Yeah, I think like in general, let me put it like that. I think those numbers changes are good. I think Spear and Sword are already almost there. So I think those numbers changes will probably make it really good to use. I don't see Hammer or Dagger main hand being actually useful in PvE still after the buffs. Because a lot of times you essentially don't have that much more damage output. Maybe Dagger, but I think Hammer, the problem with Hammer is that Hammer is a weapon that is pretty slow and you can maybe use it on a Tempest, but all the other classes are just not really like, it's not really scaling that well. I think like Spear, Sword, maybe Dagger main hand, and of course Scepter seem to be a really good option. I don't see Hammer or like even Pistol being like really like crazy good options for power-based options, of course. Pistol is a Condi-based weapon, so that will never change. But overall, big W for Elementalist Enjoyers with this. And then we have Weaver. We have a lot of changes to some weapon skills, just updating them, and that's what I mentioned earlier with like the changes to staff. We get some staff changes here as well. Nothing big, nothing major, just some updates, some more modernization to the weapon skills. I think that's pretty good. I think overall, I think Weaver was a spec that like was a little bit left alone, and especially the weapon skills, and I really hope that brings it back. We have to see how well they function, how fun they are, but I think like especially the dagger changes here seem to be really good, like really, really good. I would probably be very surprised if that doesn't make that much like into play, but we have to see, And we get some stun changes on top of that, yeah. As a ranger, what build has the most utility? Untamed, I would say. Untamed, yeah. To be honest, I typed it because I'm only playing World vs. World in open world, and I was feeling that my World vs. World builds works. I have no real experience in PvP and then a higher level instant content. No, I mean, I think, Carol, you're correct. If you are a player that plays World vs. World and you play open world like you are, it's 100% correct. But as soon as you go in all game modes, every single niche of the game, then it gets really hard to make one build that feeds into everything. That's just my whole point. But yeah, so let's talk about the Weaver changes here. Yeah, welcome, Daddy. Welcome. Glad you made it. Glad you made it. So the stances have nowadays 2 ammunition, but after the balance patch, they will just be normal attacks without any ammunition, but they will have less cooldown. So will be, so to say, not really changing much in the end, but you will also get some buffs. More healing on the healing stance, more endurance on the healing stance. And we do not heal your allies anymore. It's really just like yourself, but you get a buff. That is just essentially like Viva is not a support spec, so I think that makes sense. And then you get like some protection, and that is really good. I think in general, like Viva stances are in a decent spot, and now they get better. I think that's just good. Unravel gets removed as a utility skill, and you get now a stance that gives you quickness, fury, and swiftness. So overall, I think the Viva stance is already in a good direction, but that doesn't bring Viva in a spot where you say, oh my god, we have to play Viva in all game modes. But they also change essentially all traits on Viva. I think there is like maybe 1 or 2 traits that are not affected by that. They change so much on Viva. It's really the changes for Viva is essentially the traits. The traits is like they completely rework the traits on Viva. And I'm all for it because the Viva traits are really good, but they are power crept like crazy. They are just, when Viva released, those were really good traits, but they did never get really updated or changed to be better with the new elite specs, with the newer weapons and stuff like that. And now Viva is just in a bad spot from the traits. And that's exactly what they are tackling here. So really, really good. So let's go over it. You get now Vitality baseline, and you get condition damage instead of the Vitality when you are tuned to Earth. So it's just more damage while you're in Earth. And the Vitality is baseline there, so that makes it a bit more useful, and you don't get more Vitality just while you're tuned to Earth. That's cool. And you get Swiftness when you disable an enemy, and Swiftness has more like effect on you. That's good. So this trait is a little bit like, yeah, super speed is pretty nice and all, but it has an internal cooldown. And now this trait I think doesn't have an internal cooldown, so that's pretty good. This is already really good. Like you will see that with the later trait. I think that is already enabling one of the builds and one playstyle just by choosing this trait. Really cool. Then you get more crit chance in PvE with superior elements. Okay, yeah, we take that. This is to counteract the thing that you will lose here from this trait no longer grants precision. So it doesn't change anything. It's just like to counteract something that they do later. And then you get here, gain resistance when you attune to a single element. I think that's the worst trait that they introduce here. I think that's not really good. You lose a bit of the condition damage from this, but in general, this is like a competitive mode trait, I would say, and not even a good one at that. Then you get barrier when you dodge. We have to see how much that is, but sounds already pretty good for competitive modes. You will see a lot of the Viva changes are like in competitive modes, Viva gets like power crept like crazy. In PvE, Viva gets, yeah, I would say a little bit like untouched. Like nothing crazy for Viva for the most part for PvE, but buffs, like a bit more damage probably for Viva. For competitive modes, we have to see, but I see like a tanky bruiser Viva evolving with like swiftness and Condi Glance and stuff like that, because we get now this woven straight trait has no longer an internal cooldown, and it grants you like a really good thing, because it is nowadays it gives you, you can see it here, when gaining either super speed or swiftness, gain region and cleanser condition. And this will no longer have an internal cooldown and will only grant only trigger when you grant swiftness or super speed to yourself. So this will be now like essentially, if you apply swiftness or super speed, which you can do very, very rapidly with the other trait, and in general on Elementalist, you cleanse a condition and you gain region. So if you have water and you get region, you get another Condi Cleanse. So if you then run Nios Relic, you get like a lot of Condi Cleanses, a lot of healing with this. Can be a really bruisery playstyle, really fun trait. And the other would be Invigorating Strikes here, because this is now flow state. It's a new trait, and that changes the recharge time of your attunements. I think they set by 1 second down, which is really good. Like that makes it so that you get less cooldown on your weapon swaps or attunement swaps, making it essentially a more fast-paced build, getting more access to your weapon skills, getting easier access to all your defensive skills, really strong, and you get dual skills cooldown reduction on top of that. this will be, so to say, the more aggressive variant. And for Piano's playstyle, even in PvE, that could be fun if it wasn't that you have elements of rage in the same spot, which is just way, way better, way more damage output. So in PvE, you always take elements of rage, and in World vs. World in PvP, you take Woven Stride if you want to run a like tanky bruiser playstyle, or if you want to be more aggressive, Flow State. I think that's good. I think that's a good design. We have to see how much it is. I think Swift Revenge is a really fun trait with like the dual attacks getting more interesting effects. But we have to see how it plays out. I think Viva will be back in competitive modes, especially as a PvP like side noder. It will be back as a roamer. Will it be like crazy overpowered in PvE? Probably not. Will it be crazy overpowered in a Zerg or even PvP? No, probably not. But it will be somewhat more playable than it is right now. Because right now, Viva is a spec that is like fun to play, but it never stands out. It never shines more than in Evoker, more than in Catalyst, more than a Tempest even. It's I would say, somewhat limited but what it can do. And this will definitely bring it more in its own niche. And I think that's just straight up positive. Yeah. Straight up a positive. Yeah. I don't know. Those are the changes. I guess I covered all of them. What do you think about them? What do you think are the winners? What are the losers? Before I give you my take on that. Nice. Glad you enjoyed, Jakub. Glad you enjoy my all-purpose Herald build. More of those coming. More of those coming. Yeah. Thanks, Patricia. Thanks for posting the website. Really appreciate it. From my experience, finding a Viva is an underwhelming experience. Either he is really bad and dies in 1 second, is really God Emperor himself and you die in 1 second, nothing in between. Yeah, I think Viva is a spec that is like really fun, really challenging. And if you play it well, it can be really good. But I think it's in a spot where like almost nobody like plays it very well. So I think it's good to give it some buffs in competitive modes, I would say. That's the main thing, yeah. Bladezone is a winner. Yeah, actually it seems like Viva is pretty good now. I would say Viva is for people that like the class fantasy. I think after the patch you should definitely give it a try. I think Viva is probably one of the specs that if you have the headcanon of Viva being a fun spec, you probably will enjoy it as well. Because the buffs to it make it so that it's actually useful and good in all game modes. And yeah, you probably have to put some effort in, some patience in. You will not like instantly be a God Emperor, but it will be like good, like it will be fun. So I would say Viva, big W. Yeah, and I would personally say like the best, like the biggest winner of this spec, of this patch is definitely for me Elementalist. Because yes, Viva gets a big rework and it's really fun, but even all the other specs get those weapon changes. So I think this for me is like, this year seems boring, but I think that's heavily necessary to bring the other weapons back in line. You will probably see some crazy benchmark numbers for Elementalist after the patch drops. Maybe even Viva benchmark numbers. So I think the best, like the biggest winner is probably Elementalist, but maybe I'm also biased because I like Viva so much. I think overall, the biggest loser of the patch is probably, I would say probably Deadeye. Because Deadeye is essentially now like losing its like competitive mode's integrity. Like it's pretty much like I don't see that being like insanely good anymore because you lose the stealth access. And I think like together with like Harbinger and because of the quickness being gone and Virtuoso because of the Unblockable being gone, those three specs, Virtuoso, Harbinger and Deadeye, are like really demolished in competitive modes. That is crazy. But all other specs essentially untouched or buffed. Yeah, I would say Druid, big W, Bladezone, Renegade, big W, and Viva, big W. Those would be my 4 big winners of the patch. Yeah, I would say like Viva, for sure, crazy reworks. We have to see the numbers, but really like I like it a lot. I think the rework to Druid is like, I don't even have to know the numbers. I think that will be awesome. I already know this will be really good. Then Renegade, we have to see a bit how it plays out, but I think that is just for Renegade enjoyers, if there are any. This is definitely a big win as well. And then you have Bladezone, which we have to see how good it is. but I personally think that we get changes to Blade Swan, especially that you can move now during casting your Dragon Slash, is insanely valuable. So I personally would say big win for Blade Swan as well. Yeah, I really think so. Okay, let's get back into the game. I really do like Elementalist. Any good bursty builds on Weaver for Fractals? Yes, you play Power Weaver, which is one of the how can I say? One of the most tryhard builds in existence, playing Power Weaver and Fractals. But if you can pull it off, Power Weaver and Fractals is probably one of the best DPS builds you can pick. What do I mean by that? It has insane burst damage, and the good part is it also has like good CC, good utility, and that's essentially all that you want for DPS build in Fractals. So if you want to like really grind one class and be the absolute, like, so to say, best player in your pack group all the time, Weaver is probably your best DPS pick. It has a condition build, it has a power-based build, which is really good, both of them, in the Fractals that you play those builds in, and you just destroy. There is not a single build that you cannot, like, be top DP, like a single Fractal that you cannot be top DPS as a Weaver. Weaver is really, if you play it well, insanely good. Like, really, really good. Probably the best Elementalist spec for Fractals as a DPS. Yeah, just straight up. But it takes time and effort. It's not a spec where I would say, yep, new player, recommended, play that one, you will be top DPS. Far from it. Far from it. Nice. That was the true shot blinded. I like it. I think I will go on the Dragon Hunter here, because nice, dodge the true shot on top of that. Okay, let's go on this one. Is that a Power Reaper? I think it is. Nice, we got them. We got them. That's how we like it. Elementalist looks scary in the beginning, but if you like the class fantasy, I would highly recommend it. It's a really good spec. I like Renegade, I like the portal that opens a cannon barrage on the enemies. Yeah, I think Renegade is really fun. It's underrated. It's unpopular for no real reason, I would say. It's really good in PvE, and it's actually surprisingly good in competitive modes as well. You just need to like the playstyle, and I think that's why a lot of people don't play it. Not because it's bad, but because just people like to play classes that they think are either really strong or are really fun, and I think Renegade does not really fall in both or in any of those categories actually. So yeah. Oh. It was a good dodge. They interrupted their own attack. Now they're dead. A little bit sad, but that's how it goes, I guess. Yeah, I mean, try to have fun with it, chat. Try to have fun with it. Does it still overpower the current meta spec like Amalgam? I would say, like, Visions of Eternity is not as bad as it was. Yeah, with the, like, Visions of Eternity is now, I would say, in a balanced spot. So a lot of people always say, oh, the newest elite specs are always the best. That is the case when the elite specs launch, when the new expansion drops. Visions of Eternity, the elite specs were broken. But now it's pretty balanced. Yeah, I would not see like that, for example, like Weaver, Catalyst, Tempest are worse as a DPS option in PvE than Evoker. I think they have all their use cases and all have their like reasons to be played in a certain situation where they shine. For example, in Fractals as a DPS, I would always pick a Weaver. If you're good on Weaver, that's always the best option. If you want to play a support build, I would always choose a Tempest in PvE. So it's like all of them have the reason to exist. It's not that only this one thing is like you have to play that. Yeah, hopefully that makes sense. And I think it was in the beginning like that, but now it's not anymore. Okay, what do we have here? Is it worth to complete all maps in Guild Wars 2 base zones? You get a Gift of Exploration, which you need for crafting a legendary. So yes, it's worth it if you enjoy doing it, or if you want to go for any Generation 1 legendary. Yes. Hopefully that makes sense. Do you think Virtuoso got nerfed in PvE? No, Virtuoso is completely untouched in PvE. Completely untouched. I will not cover the monthly AT today. I will completely melt if I do that. I'm sorry. But we will have to see. We will have to see. Why is it so? Oh, they're farming us again. They are farming us again in our own keep. Not good, not good. Guardian or Revenant for open world and farm legendaries for fun. I think Guardian is a bit better, but like, I don't know, it depends a bit. Both of them are crazy good, like crazy good. So you should choose what you like. I would say that's the most important aspect there. Yeah. The Rabbit Bender Elementalist might be balanced, but it's still hide fighting with the Bladezone. Yeah, I mean, it's balanced, but it doesn't make it fun. You know, balance is not necessarily how fun something is. So I definitely agree with this. I think some of the specs can be very annoying to deal with, whereas other specs can be somewhat like, this is just going back with the Shroud. I would personally say, like, for example, I don't like fighting Deadeyes for the same reason. Deadeyes are not broken by any means in competitive modes, but they are pretty annoying to fight against. And the same goes for Virtuosos. I think Virtuosos have so many invulnerability skills that it's not fun to fight them. So I think there's always some kind of like fun aspect to it as well. For sure, for sure. Yeah. No, you always get 2 gifts of exploration. When you complete any like Guild Wars 2 character like core map, you will always get 2 gifts of exploration. So even I did it like 10 times or more, I will get 2 gifts of exploration. It's not the first time. It's so to say the first time you do it on a certain character, you will get it. So it's pretty cool. You can actually craft 2 legendaries from 1 exploration. Yeah, on 1 character at least. That's pretty good. Yeah. You can also get some Blackline chest keys. That is true. That is true. But yeah, I mean, I think that should not be your main gold income, because it's not bad, but it's not like the gold per hour for completing maps and getting Blackline chest keys is not like crazy. It's not crazy high. Just wanted to warn you there. Yeah. Welcome, Boynator. Welcome, welcome. I'm returning player and wondering what spec and build you would recommend for World vs. World as a Necromancer right now. So for roaming, I would recommend Harbinger. I have a power-based Harbinger or condition-based Harbinger. Both of them are really good for roaming. So if you want to capture camps, get 101s and stuff like that. If you're in a Zerg, I would probably recommend like Scourge. It's the old school classic. Like Scourge is just such a good like stable pick. You can go to Guild Wars 2 Mists and find the builds, the most up-to-date builds there. It's the best website right now for World vs. World builds. Can recommend that for sure. Yeah. Also wanted to say that I'm a returning player and your videos have been more than helpful. Keep up the good work. Also congrats on the growing channel. Well deserved. Thanks, Yasin. Really appreciate it, and thanks for the kind words. I hope you like enjoy my future videos then as well. And if you have any like questions, feedback, let me know. Always like willing to answer all the questions that you might have. If I have the answers, of course. Yeah. Let me know. Love fighting Deadeyes. On Bladezone I have permanent H's with projectile reflect and they kill themselves. That's really fun. That is a really fun thing. But like the funny part is also they probably don't even know about it because no one plays Bladezone. Except you apparently. So that is really cool. Yeah, for sure. For sure, very cool. But I think that's like, that's one of the beauties of Guild Wars 2, you know, like that you have so many different specs nowadays, so much different balancing and like builds to play, that in the end it's always like some builds are really good against certain other builds, some builds are really bad against certain other builds, and I think that's really nice, you know. So I think I hope that continues to be like that in the next couple of years to come. Yeah, haven't played in a while. Is my boy Steam Shrinker Amalgam still Giga? Not really. They nerfed the Amalgam, or like in general the Steam Shrinker Relic. So it's now, you can still play it, but it's not as broken as it once was. So if you are a God tier gamer, you can still make it somewhat of a God tier build. But it is also, I would say, nerfed. So it's even if you play it perfectly, you will not get like 50k benchmarks anymore. That's just, they completely decreased it in that regard. So keep that in mind, but I would say if you're an Amalgam enjoyer, it's still it's still a good build. Yeah. Any plans for making a video on add-ons that are helpful in Guild Wars 2? So I have like I have some videos already. For example, I'm using Arc DPS here. I have the mouse cursor, for example, that I have here is another add-on that is legal, which is called Blish Hut. I have those, and I have videos about it, so I don't really see myself doing another one now. But if like we get another add-on, if we get some other things in the future that are worthwhile talking about, sure, I will try to make that work and make a video about it, for sure. I'm excited for Guild Wars 3, for sure. I mean, I'm very excited for some news about it as well, some like information drops, how it actually looks, what is actually going on in the future, like how the features are and stuff like that. But we have to see when we get those. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, but I guess it will be happening over the course of the next months. But I'm really excited about the new game. But I will continue playing Guild Wars 2. You will not have to wait for any like new builds and stuff like that. I will always update Guild Wars content in the next decade, I guess. Yeah, so don't worry about it. I will cover both games. Yeah. I felt it, Patricia. I felt it. Yeah, Blizzard is a really good add-on. I think Blizzard and especially Arc DPS, those two add-ons, and Nexus, those three add-ons are really valuable. I would not really want to play the game without them. I think it's really making the game more enjoyable and also to some extent a better game, better experience. So yeah, definitely the case. Yeah, Blish is very flexible. You have so many different options for what you can add into Blish. Yeah, it's really good. I have a guide about it if you want to know. And yeah, it's just really recommended to use it. Oh, we are pushing them. Almost slept on it. Do you think Pistol will be a great better for Condi Virtuoso than with the current pets? We have to try. I think the problem is like currently you're using, I guess it is actually okay, yeah. The problem is currently you're using like a dagger main hand with a sword offhand and a focus offhand as a condition virtuoso. And to make the pistol work, you would have to use the pistol trait. But nowadays, you don't need to use it anymore after the update because it will be baseline, the bleeding. So I think there could be a world that you drop one of the offhand weapons and go for pistol. The interesting part here is that Condition Virtuoso actually does also a decent amount of power damage, and pistol is not really known for being like crazy good power damage in PvE. So we have to see if that's actually outperforming the other weapons. But definitely interesting. I would personally say it's nice to have options because it gives you a nice CC, which is like a long-range CC, which otherwise Focus, for example, might not have. So overall, I think that's either way a W. The question is if you play it all the time or if it's just a situational weapon. I'm happy with it. I think Pistol is one of the most underused weapons on on Mesmer. Probably the worst weapon on Mesmer. So it's good that it gets like some small buffs. Yeah, definitely good. So let's get some support out. Very good, very good. I introduced you to it. That's how we like it. Just noted you're on my World vs. World matchup. I see you're also getting harassed by rats. Yeah, the rats this time are crazy. Like they are like really farming us. Like spawn camping us almost. That's crazy. Yeah. But I mean, you know, we're beating them a bit back, so I guess that's fine. Yeah. But yeah, just a quick reminder, because I see it here in chat, if you are a new player, veteran, returning player, whatever, and you don't have all the expansions, right now is a really good time to purchase any expansions that are not the latest, the latest one with Visions of Eternity and Chant Waltz, the second to latest one, because they are 30% off. So even the big bundle of like the first 3 expansion is 30% off. So if you want to like get good value for your money spent on the game, now is a good time. And if you want to support my channel, you can also use my referral link as usual in the description down below, and for no additional cost, as you might guess. So yeah. And if you have any other questions, just let me know. I'm always happy to talk, especially to new players, and help them ease getting into the game, because I really think the game is amazing, especially with the new updates coming and stuff. So if you have any questions, just let me know. Yeah. Woke up at 4 AM and they had everything on all. yeah, that I can imagine. Yeah, I can imagine that this is the case. Yeah, maybe I'm weird, but I find pistols thematically just wrong. I agree. I have to be honest. I think pistols in general in Guild Wars 2 don't really feel that good. Like that might be a really hot take. So please close your ears if you're into Asura technology and stuff. But I think Guild Wars 2, one of the things that I don't enjoy about the game is that it has a lot of like this technology being also somewhat competing against the magic. You know, we are using a catapult here, which is like classic, like Dark Ages, Middle Ages, kind of like old fantasy. But at the same time, we're using a pistol. Like, what? That doesn't really like fit that well. And then you have like the mages shooting like lightning at you. What? I think that is, for me, it's so like so much like stuff mixed together. And I think that's why I'm never a big fan of using pistols on any mages, like pistol elementalist, pistol like on, I don't Guardian or like Mesmer. I'm never a big fan of using it. But if it's the meta or if it's a good build, I still use it because I'm not like playing for, how can I say, like role play for the most part. I play for actual good gameplay. But I think from the roleplay aspect, I'm not the biggest fan. Yeah, for sure. Soda is worth getting at this price, in my opinion. Yeah, I think it's actually like probably the best features that you can get from a mini expansion for sure. So yeah, good expansion to get for sure if you don't have it yet. Yeah, but I think that goes for almost all the expansions because they all give you great value. Do we actually get that? I think we are losing here. There are so many. But I guess we are the cloud kings, so maybe we actually cloud them down. You will see. You will see. Doesn't look good. No. I was wondering like our commander was pushing like crazy, but I think they are just... That's not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. Which builds back on Mesmer for roaming and surging? So for surging, I would say you play Troubadour or you play Chronomancer for support. And because after the patch, like Virtuoso is pretty nerfed, I would say for roaming, it's like you play probably like... I personally would say for roaming... I don't know. I think like roaming on Mesmer, I'm a bit like... I have not done that much, to be honest. I think roaming... Mesmer is like all builds can be played, but it's not like insanely giga god here. I think Mirage is probably... Power Mirage is one of the best roamers if you can pull it off. But on the other hand, I think like in Zergs, it's probably like playing support Chronomancer or support Troubadour is probably your best bet after the patch specifically. Yeah. Honestly, only like pistols on Engineer. Yeah, I think on Engineer it somewhat makes sense because you're the spec that is like focused on like gadgets and technology and stuff. So I think there it makes sense. But for all other weapons, all other classes, I think pistol is a little bit weird. Maybe on like Bladesworn with pistol, maybe, but everything else is like doesn't really make sense. I agree. Yeah. Welcome, Everlong. Welcome. Yeah, exactly. Like Pupsi Mausi puts it here in German. Like, I think it's like, apparently you cannot like use magic for everything. I think that is true. But the thing is like, for me, a fantasy game, also having crazy technology and stuff is like, okay. But I think it's not my aspect of like role play. You know, if I play a mage, I want to play a mage and don't want to play a technology mage. That's just a weird combination for me. That is like the main thing that I don't get. Yeah. I guess pistol on thief is also okay. Good point. Yeah. Yeah, I think like Mesmer has so many good offhands. Like you have focus, you have sword, you have even like a shield. And like, why would you use a pistol? Like the pistol is just like fantasy thing is not good, but at the same time, it's also weak. It's by far the weakest offhand weapon. So I'm happy that we get a buff to it. Like the buffs to it are heavily needed. Yeah. I like the mixture of weapons and stuff. To me, it feels like it's a colliding of different worlds. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think that's good to have different like options for everybody, and I think that's really nice. I'm not saying it's like a bad decision to have that in the game. It's not vibing with me personally, but that is just like a very subjective opinion of that. Yeah, like the Final Fantasy wizard on motorbike. Yeah, I mean, to each their own, I would say. I'm just saying that's my opinion on the matter. Yeah. Dagger, pistol, anti-gun makes sense. Yeah, I guess like on thief it can make sense. I guess there's one elite spec or one class for every. Somewhat like you have like engineer, thief, and warrior that can make sales. I guess that can make sense. Yeah. Okay, even tech is based on magic. I guess you can see I played the game for over 10,000 hours and I still have no clue about the lore. So I guess you are correct if the technology is based on magic to some extent, and that is the lore behind it. I guess that then it's somewhat reasonable again, I guess. Yeah, but I'm not that deep into it, so I don't really know. Yeah. As a person trying to get into the game, the amount of different playstyles each weapon has with elite specs and unique weapon skills is holding me back from actually playing the game due to overthinking. That's a bit sad, because I actually think that's one of the biggest strengths of the game, is that whatever you choose, whatever elite spec or even class you choose, you always have like all the different options available to you. It's somewhat, like, in my opinion, somewhat similar to Final Fantasy's job system. Not as extensive, but if you choose, for example, to be an elementalist in Guild Wars 2, you can play a support, you can play a DPS, you can play some hybrid, you can play a bruiser, a tank, whatever you want. And you don't have to swap character for that. And I think that's really cool. But it leads a new player to be easily over, like, so to say, thinking stuff, being just, oh my god, what do I have to do? What can I pick? What is good here? I can definitely see that. So yeah, I don't know. I hope I can help you with my YouTube content and my like answers here on Twitch streams, but you have to like ask stuff. I don't know where to start. There is so much like things that we would have to explain to a new player that I don't know where to start. So if you have any questions, just ask. You can always ask in my Discord server as well. You have a lot of helpful people there as well if I'm not online. So yeah, hopefully we can get more new players in the game. Yeah. I'm about to spin a will and just start with whatever class it lands on. I mean, you should choose the class that you like the class fantasy the most. So if you have a certain class that you think the class fantasy is awesome. So imagine you really like Mesmers. Because Mesmer is a class fantasy of like mind mages and you never played that before. You have no clue how that looks, how it works. And that is such a good class fantasy to you. Then, yeah, then I would say choose that one. And you will probably, let me in. You will probably have like all the builds that you can play with it are fun to you. Yeah. If you are more of a warrior enjoyer, pick warrior, and you will have a really good time with all the different specs there. It's just like you have to start somewhere. And I think the class fantasy is something that you will not change by choosing a specific build. It's more about you choose the class fantasy that you like, and then you can always adjust the builds that you want to fill the role as. I do have friends who are new and struggling with being overwhelmed with choice. They want to try everything immediately. Yeah, that is like a lot of people have that issue. A lot of people have that issue. Yeah, we have a roaming build here now, but I think we can still get use. We actually got some of them. They actually split. Okay, I guess we take it. Yeah, most people play Guardian or Mesmer, and I guess you are also one of them, and I think you can never go wrong with those. They are really, really popular for a reason. Really, really popular. So if you like the class design of them, choose any one of them and you will have insane flexibility, really fun classes, elite specs. It's really good. Yeah. I'm an engineering person, but the class mechanic is quite intimidating, so many buttons. But there are really easy builds with mechanists as well, so you should, if you still like it, go for engineer. It has really easy ones as well. Sorry, Yasin, sometimes I don't see the question, so I did not ignore you. Sometimes I just don't see it in time. What's your favorite spec profession for PvE, PvP, and what's your main if you have one? I don't have a main. I play all classes. For World vs. World right now, I play a lot of Elementalist, like for Surging Tempest and for roaming Evoker. Maybe Viva after the patch, hopefully. Yeah, so Elementalist for like World vs. World is my main. For PvP, I play a lot of Evoker right now, like Side Note Evoker, I really like that. And for PvE, I don't know, I play a lot of like Virtuoso, Power Virtuoso, but it really, like, I switch classes all the time, you know, I have 70 characters for a reason. It's just because I like to play all the different builds, all the different classes. So I would say, if you would have to pin me down on one class, I would probably leave the game after like 2 weeks because I get bored. I want to play every different class, every different spec all the time, so I switch all the time. You see that when I stream PvE, I play Engineer, I play like Warrior, I play Guardian, I play Mesmer, I switch all the time. So I really don't have a main. That is the main TLDR, so to say. Yeah. Yeah. I also started on Ranger, but it is not my main for sure now at this point, yeah. Spear Evoker is really good in World vs. World as well. It's just like you need to have a bit more of an organized squad because right now we're losing. And it's really frustrating to play like a DPS build when you're losing because you're just dead all the time and don't get any value. So I play a bit of a support so I don't die all the time. But if you have a good Zerg, like Spear Evoker is insanely good. Spear Catalyst as well, really good. Yeah. Yeah, the post-patch Weaver build will be very fun. I will play a lot of Weaver after the patch. I can tell you that much for sure, yeah. I play Evoker, so I need to leave World vs. World. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people hate Evoker, but I personally think like Evoker is now more balanced than before. So I think it's actually okay. But I can understand the frustration there for sure. I can see that. Yeah. I like Ranger Fantasy, but I hate pets. I mean, that's not a good combination, but I guess you can play Soul Beast then, where you kill your pet or you merge with the pet. Guess that is somewhat decent then. But yeah, I mean, Ranger in Guild Wars 2 is more like the somewhat like of a nature guy with a pet. That's essentially more like it. It's not the classic Archer Fantasy, except like maybe Gale Shot, but you always have the pet, except those Soul Beast, I guess. But you always have the pet, so it's not like you cannot play like the classic Archer that you have in other games because they typically don't have a pet necessarily that, like with them all the time. So yeah, I mean, that's every game is different, and I think that's their decision for how they designed Ranger or like this nature bard Archer playstyle in Guild Wars 2. Yeah. And final Bladezone with the rework coming up. Yeah, I think Bladezone rework will be good. Probably not so much in competitive modes as it will be in PvE, but maybe, you know, maybe I'm a bit pessimistic. Yeah, maybe it will be God tier as a side note in PvP as well. Who knows? Yeah. Just got my full first Ascended set on my main engineers, then easy way to grab Ascended gear from my alts to start playing them. I have an Ascended gear guide on my YouTube channel if you want to get all the very concise information about what you should get and how to get it. But I would personally say Wizard's Vault is your best friend. Like, Wizard's Vault is insanely good, gives you essentially like 3 pieces per season just for free. It's really, really good. And after that, like, Raids is good, like PvP, World vs. World can also give it to you. In general, like, almost all game modes give you Ascended gear. You just have to like know where to get it from. That's why the guide is so important, because it tells you all the ways and then you can decide which one is for you the best. Is Monkit Scrapper viable in Fractal CMs as DPS, quickness DPS? Yes, it is. It is. It's not like top DPS, of course, because you are like making your build a bit easier, but it is a really good one at that, especially as a quick DPS. So keep that in mind. I would highly recommend to give it a try and see how it goes. And if you don't like it there, if you don't like have success with this, then it's fine. But I personally would say if you play it well, if you have a good group, it's like a really good class to play. And you don't have to play like 3 kits Scrapper just because Snowcross tells you to. You can make it work with less kits as well. Yeah. Just coming back, torn between Berserker and Catalyst on which to play, though I'm trying to figure out the best way to get hero points. I would say Berserker is easier. Catalyst is more of like a very piano-heavy playstyle. So whatever you enjoy the class fantasy or like the playstyle of, go with it. I would say both of them are in a fantastic spot in PvE. They are also in a really good spot in competitive modes. Not as good as in PvE though. Like in PvE they are really good. Like especially Berserker has like, I don't know, 7 different builds that you can use. It's extremely good. Highly recommend to play it. But even Catalyst is good. Like Catalyst is right now in World vs. World. Zerg's really good, but it will get a nerf with the next balance patch. So we have to see what exactly it will be after. But yeah, for sure a good option for you, both of them. Yeah, sorry I cannot give you like a clear distinction. They're just both good. Yeah. I only have the first 2 expansions, struggling to find a class to play. I would say if you only have the first 2 expansions, Reaper is probably your best bet. Reaper is so good. It's really good in all game modes, really safe, really easy, really fun. Always recommended. But it always depends what class fantasy you enjoy, of course. I know your guides are all about numbers, math, and working out good builds, but what's your favorite elite spec from a theme, coolness factor point of view, animations, spells, just like that? I would probably say it's Weaver. I think Weaver is such a cool class idea of weaving together the elements, having to juggle the two attunements all the time and deciding when to attune to certain things and how it functions. It's not from the numbers that I like it. It's really just from how fun it is, the idea of it. I really like it. I think that would be my pick, my top pick, if you would have to say what is the most fun theme of an elite spec. Yeah, that would be my pick there for sure. But that is just, you know, some people hate it because it's like, it's definitely different than other elementalists. You know, it's not playing as, you know, how can I say, it's not playing as different as like a Tempest or like Catalyst. They are all like, you are tuned to fire and you feel like the burst damage. If you are playing like any other like elementalist build, you definitely see elements very clearly. You know, water is the support element. Then you have the DPS element with fire, maybe air. In Weaver, it's not as clear, and some people hate that. That is, so to say, like muddy to some extent. You know, you can be in fire and water and deal a lot of damage with the dual attack skill. Some people hate this idea. Yeah, but I personally really love it. Yeah. Yeah, if you have been leveling a warrior, then it's already like a good choice to go with Berserker, I guess. Berserker is probably is a good one. What do they want? Do they want to kill me here? They don't have any damage. Exactly, it's like a mishmash, yeah, like you would say in German, for sure. But I really liked it. It brings together really nice aspects of the game, for sure. I like it a lot. Okay, they are coming. Oh no, they are coming. Exactly, and if you need to like some help to find the classes that you want to see, you can always check out my video. It's not the most like up to date anymore, so maybe I have to do another one of that. But the classes that are in there look still the same, you know. Maybe I have to do another one. It's actually a good reminder there. I should keep that updated, especially with all the new players joining or returning players. I probably should do another like showcase of all the elite specs and how they look, how they function, how they. Just a quick like summary. But yeah, you can always ask, and I have like so many videos on my YouTube channel to cover them, so you should always just like look at the specific class, how it plays, because it's always, you know, the look of a class is what makes you like it. It's really important. Yeah, sure, the balance can be good and bad, but I think the most important aspect about a class is always like, do you like the playstyle? Do you like the look of it? If you don't like the animations, you should not play it, you know, just because it's really good. I think it's a game about fun. Any game is about fun. So I think you should always choose the stuff that you actually enjoy and find fun to play, fun to look at. I'm not sure if we win this here. Like, we are again getting somewhat farmed. But okay. The most annoying part being level 80 is hard to try different specs because lack of hero points. Yeah, but I think if you get more of a veteran player perspective, you will get hero points very fast. Yeah, it's just in the beginning. But you will get there. You know, I can like purchase, like, for example, of course, I'm a veteran, I know, but I can purchase probably like hundreds of elite specs instantly, yeah, just by playing World vs. World, for example, or having like map completions on other characters. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, staff in general on Evoker or Elementalist is just not worthwhile using in PvE. It's not that good, sadly. It's a support weapon, and even then it's not the best, sadly. Would be a good time to do a new video now, since a lot of people. Exactly. I just noticed when we talked about it, so I will definitely have that on my list very, very high up, and I will try to get it out very soon. Yeah. Will Elementalist Hammer be any better post-July patch? Yes, it will be way better. Question is if it is good enough to be played over like sword, spear, or scepter. I have my doubts, but maybe. Yeah, maybe. The main thing I personally miss from class picking videos is actual rotation showcase. It's often gameplay footage of too much going on and doesn't really have a feel of the class. The problem is, like, let's say you go for like Reaper or like one specific elite spec. Even one elite spec has already like potentially 5 different, up to 10 different builds that you can play, and all of them have a different rotation. So it's not like you pick an elite spec and I can say, oh, yeah, I will give you a 30-second showcase of the rotation. That's just not how it works. You know, some builds, like for example Evoker or Catalyst have like 10 plus different builds in PvE that you can play, and they all have a different rotation and how they look. So that's just essentially making it so that you, yeah, I don't know, you don't really know what I would show you there, because there are so many different things that I could show you instead. So I don't know, really hard to make that for new player understandable. You want to showcase the classes, attacks and stuff, but at the same time you cannot do that if you don't want to make a 1 hour video showcasing all the rotations of all the classes, because there's so many different ones. That's really the big issue there. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah. I have not played Guild Wars 2 for 6 to 9 months. Can you tell me what's new and interesting they added in that time? So we got a new expansion. I don't know if you saw the Visions of Eternity expansion. We got like new elite specs for every class. We get new maps, new legendaries. We got a lot of new balance. We got some balance nerfs so that almost everything is pretty somewhat similar in terms of damage output. And yeah, I mean, they also did like a lot of raid updates. They did like fashion templates, a lot of quality of life changes. But overall, I would say like the game is still the same. It's just like they might try to make it a better game and improve some UI, improve some like performance, stuff like that, and more to come in the future. So yeah, I don't know exactly what you want to hear, but that was the very, very broad overview. Yeah, that's what makes it more difficult to choose a class, to be honest. They added the new elite spec and weapon choices, makes the class play so different. Exactly, there are so many different options, even for the same class, that it's really, really tough to make like videos about that are somewhat concise at the same time. It's a bit of an issue, and hard to tackle that, to be honest. Yeah, hard to tackle. What build are you playing? The Avatar Last Airbender? I'm playing an Elementalist that is essentially like supportive. Like I'm support Tempest, very tanky, and just trying to heal allies that are close here and giving them some boons and healing, essentially. That's pretty much what I'm doing. It's like pretty good for like unorganized situations like we are currently in, because we just like don't know what's going on. We are not perfectly organized, have perfect boon uptime and stuff like that. And that's where this build is actually pretty good. As soon as we get really organized and have like supports and sub-supports and DPS, then it gets a little bit less good, but yeah. It's kind of crazy how much build variety Guild Wars 2 has when you think about it. I play Final Fantasy XIV and WoW 2 and they just don't compare. Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest strengths, but it's also a really big curse for new players because they just don't see that, you know? A new player doesn't see that and it's just overwhelmed, to be honest. They are just overwhelmed by all the options that you have. In WoW, if you play a tank, you choose this gear and you are good to go on a certain like class, so to say. In Guild Wars 2, if you choose a class, you have all your options still. You chose a class, but it doesn't lock you into anything. That's the problem. Yeah, Guild Wars 2 Mists is the best website and would say for World vs. World builds. Yeah. Maybe like a different kind of list would be an idea, like playing a tank when these class spec combinations, healer dose class spec, magic DPS, range DPS. Maybe, yeah, maybe you could make like some kind of like a little bit more like giving some people a bit more direction by choosing what kind of type they are looking for. Oh my god, the immobilize. The immobilize. Did you see the immobilize? I couldn't even teleport there. That was crazy. So sad. But I mean, I survived because I'm Elementalist, but they are farming us like crazy. The reds are really, really good. Really, really smurfing us here, I would say. I mean, that's how it is. I think the downside is that if you want to try different builds, you really need different gear all the time. Yeah, I think legendary gear comes in handy for that. But I think that's more of a veteran's perspective for sure. Yeah, I think that's a fair criticism again. Like you have to be very... Stop it. You have to be really careful, of course. Like a new player starts as like one class, maybe one elite spec, one gear set, and you slowly get this build flexibility. It's not something that you instantly get as a new player and you have like all the options instantly. That's just not how it is. You slowly work your way there. But I guess it makes also sense. Yeah, it makes sense. In other games, the classes have more distinct roles. In Guild Wars 2, almost any class can cover any role. Exactly. Yeah, that's just how it is, I guess. What can you do? What can you do? But yeah, I think like I'm already like falling, like I'm like so sweaty. I think that's also somewhat the end of today's stream. I'm really sorry I can't stream longer, but I mean, it's summer, it's the heat wave. I think we have to call it here. But it was really fun talking about the balance and stuff. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Thanks for all your support and the kind words. And yeah, I hope to see you on the next streams. Yeah, I'm sorry, very sorry, Supreme, that you just joined. Yeah, have a great weekend, you all, and hopefully don't sweat too much, you know. And I will see you next time. Be sure to check out my YouTube channel, of course, if you want to have more content, daily content about Guild Wars 2. So if you cannot get enough of me, YouTube is always a good time. And yeah, we can do some more roaming next time, of course, for sure. Stay cool, that's the good one. That's a good one for sure. And see you all. Have a good time. And thanks for being here.